us, I'll kind of get going. I know Linda will be a couple minutes late, and I'm assuming Ian will be on shortly. So welcome everybody to the December 22nd Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting. This meeting is being held entirely remotely with participants participating via Zoom. The public can participate via YouTube. NCTV, you can assign Will as the co-host. Sorry about that, guys. So everybody's participating entirely remotely. The public can participate via YouTube. There are directions explaining how you can join. I ask that anybody wishing to comment, please raise your hand either virtually or within the camera window. And hopefully I will notice within a reasonable amount of time and recognize you. Please state your name and any relationship you have to a project before speaking. And everybody, please make sure your devices are muted so that you're not picked up by the recording and don't distract our minutes taker. So with that, we will begin our meeting with public comment. Diane Coombs, do you have a comment to make? And you're muted.
Hi, I was going to comment on 21 Meter Street, so I probably should wait for that, right?
Yes, exactly. So when we hear 21 Meter Street, I'll open it up for public comment and you can raise your hand at that point.
Thanks very much. I would do that.
All right, thank you. Any other public comment on items not being heard this evening? RJ?
Thank you, Chairman RJ Turcott, on behalf of the Nantucket Land Council. I'm not sure if anything came of the meeting last week, but I know that Select Board has one more meeting before the January 12th meeting, and I know that Matt Fee was on the call, and I believe Libby Gibson was on the call, but if the commission hasn't heard back anything about independent counsel, it might be worth writing. I know you've written multiple, but one more letter just specifically asking and see if it gets on the agenda. That was our thought. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Yeah, I know we heard kind of a response with tentative dates for a potential joint meeting. And although our request for counsel was like listed, I don't believe it's been an item up for discussion. I know I kind of loosely asked Jeff to maybe resend our initial message, and then I admittedly have not checked back with him on that. So we will try our best. I also, I guess, put a plea to the public to as well pressure your elected government officials to try and do the right thing here. But yes, we will try and send a repeat message maybe over this holiday week, and then maybe another one right when we get back, just to hammer it home. Thank you. Any other public comment on items not being heard this evening? There does not appear to be any public comment on Zoom at this point. So without public comment, we will begin tonight under public hearing notices of intent. We have Easton Street LLC at 55 Easton Street, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC. At the last meeting, we discussed the proposed project that involved raising and relocating existing dwelling with some improvements on the subject parcel located within the flood zone. There's also that isolated vegetated wetland to the north that's separated from the site itself by an off-site structure. that's also enclosed with stockade fence and a patio area. We had submitted a photograph just to show what that looks like between the existing deck on site and looking towards the wetland. So pretty heavily developed conditions between the site and the wetland. And the wetland itself, again, is occupied by invasive Phragmites, bush honeysuckle and bittersweet, surrounded by existing development. But as requested by the commission, we did provide some clarification on the reduction of the structural footprint within the 50-foot. And there's a total of 49 square feet being reduced within the 50-foot buffer zone, in addition to an increase in the wetland separation setback to that offsite wetland. So that, coupled with the reconstruction of the dwelling that's going to be elevated in compliance with the state and local building codes to improve the flood zone interests, we believe the project will result in an improvement over existing conditions. And I'll turn over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Once the screen shares off, I'll hopefully be able to see if any commissioners have questions or comments. So again, any questions or comments? Mark?
Thank you, Ashley. Brian, am I reading it correctly? There's a substantial amount of construction within the 25 to 50-foot barrier?
There's existing developed conditions that are off-site, yes.
But you're doing nothing within 25 to 50 feet for new construction?
Well, we're shifting the house further away from the wetland within the 50-foot minimally. And there's some proposed redevelopment in that outer 50-foot, but that's all the previously developed conditioned. And again, we're moving the structure further away, closer towards Easton Street, to reduce that structural footprint in the 50.
Well, to be blunt, Brian, you didn't move it far enough away to my liking.
Well, again, just to reiterate, there's heavily developed conditions in between the site and the wetland with the existing structure that's surrounded again by stockade fence patios. And I think shifting it closer towards Easton Street, you run into HDC issues, amongst other concerns. But again, I think the project is a vast improvement over existing conditions, from a flood zone perspective, and also increasing the wetland setbacks and structural reduction.
Well, I like the flood zone protection issue. That's very important, but I think you could have moved the house to the south and with a different configuration of the house and be entirely out of the 50-foot zone. That's what confuses me, I guess.
Don Bracken, the engineer for the project, I really don't think there was much more opportunity to move it closer to the street. As Brian had said, it's an older house. It's the shape of the house. They try to move it as close to the street as they could, and went through a long HDC process to get it to where it is. And the steps are already in the front setback as it is, which are now exempt from zoning. So we have zoning issues as well. And I don't think that reconfiguring the structure is an option from an HDC standpoint.
Thank you, guys. Mark, do you have any follow-ups, or is that it?
I guess that's it, but I sort of don't get why I couldn't have a different design that would meet our wetland bylaw.
No, I have to say I'm in agreement. The proposed addition within the 50, even with developed conditions, makes me uncomfortable, just because we're kind of further degrading an area just because there's already degradation there. I don't know that that's a great justification, but I do understand the flood zone benefits of this one. Linda, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with this. I also, since I'm at the HDC every week, I also watched the torturous route that it took to get through the HDC. I'm well familiar with this structure as well as the other two bungalows. It's a bungalow style structure. It had an addition put on it many decades ago. They're reconfiguring that addition that's already there. I also believe when I was looking at the maps, there is a substantial garage in between it and this tiny little wetlands, which does not show up on the town GIS, which does not show up on the DEP maps either. So it sort of struck me when I heard that there was, I did work on the one on Walsh that actually backs up to it with that garage, that I was surprised that there was actually a wetland back there. Once you look closely at the vegetation, you can tell that there's some water there. But I have no problem with the plan as proposed. They can't really move it that much farther forward, and they certainly can't go left or right, north or south, because of how small these lots are that are lined up there with the old bungalows. And these are among the first houses that were built on Easton Street in that section, because I've had the old, like 1800, 1900 aerials. So I don't see there's much option here. And as I say, there is another structure between it and this tiny little wetland. So it's not wetlands in the sense that we have these vast swaths of wetlands. This is a hole in the ground that has that vegetation that indicates that it is now a wetland. But if you look back on the old aerials, it wasn't there at all. So, things have evolved over time. The water tables changed. So I don't see a real problem with what they're proposing. And I don't want to ping pong them back and forth between multiple boards either. So I don't see that there's much alternative here, except to rip the house apart and take off an addition in that space that's already disturbed that was there, 80 years ago. So that's my position.
Thank you, Linda. Any other commissioners, questions or comments? If not, we'll open it up to public comment. So public comment on 55 Easton Street. Do not see any public comment on YouTube. Will, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, we do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Don, would you like to close?
Oh, Don, you're muted.
I'm sorry, I had computer problems. I couldn't get on. So how many members do we have right now? Just
We have 5.
We take a sense of the board before we
yeah, I
close.
think, obviously, I think our client, unfortunately isn't, we don't have the benefit of his advice right now. So yeah, if we could take a sense of the commission, if that's okay. Obviously, we think we've made, a good case for a waiver. So maybe ask the question that, if everyone's in favor of the waiver or not in favor before you close it, I guess, if that's possible.
Well, I know I've kind of expressed concern about the addition within the 50. So that is, something I'm not comfortable with under the justification that there's development between that and the wetland.
But the addition is the area of the
Addition's already
addition is
there.
less than what's there.
Yeah.
That's what you asked us last time, to add that to the plan, and we're showing that. I think there's like a 49 square foot reduction to what's already there.
Yeah,
So,
no, and from my perspective, 49 square feet is not that big of a reduction for the disturbance to add the addition. So that's just where I sit.
Okay.
I don't know if other commissioners want to weigh in. Linda,
I'm in favor.
you're in favor, but did we just lose?
Who else did we lose here?
We lost Joe off the call, I believe. So now there's four of us at the moment. Not sure
Let's
what
see.
happened there.
Yeah, I don't see him back on again.
I don't know if any other commissioners want to weigh in how they feel about the waiver. Mike?
Hey.
Hi.
Oh, Mike, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Madam
Just
Chair.
came up.
I'd be in favor as presented.
You'd be in favor of the waiver?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I
Diane,
guess,
you need to mute.
Or maybe Will, can you mute?
Diane.
So again, now there's 4 of us.
yeah, I mean, I guess with not knowing where Joe went or if he can resume,
You want to
All
hold
right.
it, Madam Chair, until Joe comes back?
I just don't know if he's coming back. I also
Coming back?
Ian would be here today and he's not.
Seth is away.
And Seth is away. So we have just a super long meeting. So it's up to you guys as the applicant, whether you want to continue or close. I don't have Joe's number, so I can't text him to see if he's coming.
Did Mark say if he was going to go with it or against it? I think he had concerns.
Mark has concerns.
yeah, I guess without knowing Joe's opinion, oh, there he is.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
Ian, we're at the meeting. You coming on?
Oh, you're unmuted, Mark.
Oh, okay.
One day we're going to be able to say not the word mute again.
Yeah. Maybe miracles will be made at some point.
Joe is back though.
I lost
Yeah.
power.
Okay. Sorry about that, Joe. Thank you for coming back to us through the chaos of losing power. It's going to be a tough couple days. Mark, it looks like has a comment, and then Joe will let you get back on.
I
Mark?
just spoke with Ian, and Ian's gonna be spotty if at all. He's
Okay.
not on island right now.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
good. He escaped before this happens.
Yeah, thank you for checking on him. It's hard for me to run the meeting and try and coordinate
Yes.
other people on the outside at the same time. Joe, so Brian and Don were asking to get a sense of the board on how we feel about wavering the work within the 50-foot buffer zone. And if you are happy with the waiver and would allow it to go forward, or if you have concerns. Oh, and you're muted.
The only concern I'd have would be the proposed addition that's shown on the drawing. Other than that, I'm favorably disposed, say aye.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So Brian and Don, back to you.
That was sort of helpful, but not one way or the other, because the addition is still up in question. So I think based on what Joe just said, I think we'll probably best to ask for a continuance and review with our clients.
Okay, perfect. So, oh, I don't even have my next calendar. I believe our next meeting is that January 5th.
Fifth.
Okay, so this will continue until January 5th.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. So that moves us on to 36B Lily Street LLC at 36B Lily Street, represented by Brian Madden.
And I have to recuse from this one.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden from LEC, representing the applicant. Based off of the last meeting, we made several revisions to the project to address the commission's concerns. I'll let Will pull up the new plan. This is the older original plan.
I may have the wrong one up, but give me.
I can share my screen if that's easy.
Brian, why don't you share your screen if you have it?
Yep. All right. Thank you. All right, everyone see that?
Yes, we can see that.
All right, excellent. So based on the commissioner feedback we got at the last meeting, we've made several revisions, essentially eliminating the proposed structure within the 50-foot buffer zone to the vegetated wetlands to the west. That results in a net decrease of 74 square feet of structure that's currently within the 50-foot buffer zone. And if you remember, originally we had 121 square feet of structure proposed in the 50, which resulted in a net increase of 47 square feet. So with the revision outside the 50-foot, we have a net decrease of 74 square feet. The size of the proposed main dwelling has been reduced in total by 202 square feet. We eliminated the gravel surface driveway turnout area that extended into the land subject to flooding. Again, that's a local land subject to flooding. This is not within a FEMA flood zone. We revised, eliminated the gravel aspect, and per I think it was Seth's recommendation to go for reinforced grass. That's what's being proposed. So no substantive change there. We initially had a boardwalk that was proposed along the side entrance. We've substituted that with a pervious paver walkway that will be set within grass to allow for more infiltration. And what that does, it allows for additional room for buffer zone plantings within the 50-foot buffer zone along that westerly property line that we had already proposed. And there was a series of native shrubs proposed along that extent. We eliminated a proposed deck between the two structures, and that will just be lawn area. There's been some minimal updates to the parking configuration based on the structure update. But the proposed project has been designed to avoid any adverse impacts to resource areas. We're implementing best management practices during construction and installation of the mono slab foundation, supported by helical piles to minimize groundwater concerns. Runoff is being handled via stone infiltration trenches around the perimeter of the main dwelling and subsurface infiltration system for the northerly structure, again, with that slab foundation already in place. And we feel that the proposed project meets the performance standards other than the 2-foot separation to high groundwater, but feel that there won't be an adverse impact, and the project will result in an improvement over existing conditions through the plantings, the wetland increased setback, and the reduction in the 50-foot buffer zone. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions, or unless Dan Bailey or Sarah Alger has anything else to add.
No, not at this time. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Mike, I see you, and then Mark, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So is the revised structure is not there built yet, right? That's not been previously approved for anything that like the grayed out structure. I'm sorry for it to be vague. I don't have the plan in front of me right now. I'm just pulling it up on my other computer.
I'll just pull it back up. Yeah, this proposed structure is not yet constructed. This was, well, it's the modified footprint of what was previously approved, reduced per the commission's request, but that has not yet been constructed. This northerly structure, the foundation is in place.
Okay, sorry, I recall that now.
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yes, thank you. I did something to my Zoom screen. Bear with me for a second.
No problem. They're tough to navigate. Mark, you had your hand up.
I did. Thank you, Ashley. Brian, is there construction within the 50 anywhere on the property? I'm not seeing it map.
It's a portion of the parking, on-site parking is within the 50, but that's a pervious surface.
Okay, thank you for that. I know I'm reading it correctly then. And tell me this, Brian, what will the access be to the second dwelling in the northwest corner?
In terms of post-construction or during construction?
A post-construction vehicle or pedestrian or both?
There will be no vehicle access, just pedestrian access around the building, the main building.
I guess I'm just troubled by the intense use of the property, but I wish I knew more about the groundwater separation issues. Like when you build I realize the foundation is already in for the northwest structure, but there's nothing really on the ground except some gravel and just various wild vegetation where the proposed structure is going. And I'm not sure we're covering that big a piece of real estate will affect the groundwater. Maybe I could get help from some of our more science-oriented members like Ashley.
Putting me on the spot. Mark, I have concerns about that too. And I wanted to ask Brian just to clarify for me, because it's been a long week. Both structures are within the 2-foot separation to groundwater, correct?
So the northerly structure with the foundation in place, we're not seeking the waiver of separation to groundwater because it's already in place and it's just being built up. For the main dwelling, yes, it's within the 2-foot. And just to restate it, it's a mono slab foundation. So it's a slab foundation with helical piles. The helical piles will go into groundwater, but the slab foundation itself will not.
Okay, so that'll sit above. Thank you for articulating how that works a little bit, just with all the neighbor concerns with water runoff and high water. I want to make sure we're minimizing displacement as best as possible. So thank you. Mark?
So again, that when you say mono slab, Brian, I'm sorry, I'm not up to snuff on this not even a technical issue, on the issue. Does that mean the mono slab will be above ground level? There'll be ground underneath it that'll be essentially undisturbed?
No, I mean, I would think of it more like a slab foundation for a garage.
So it'll be on the ground?
Yes. But it will have the gravel sub base, and then there will be the helical piles driven into the ground. That gives it the additional structural support.
And follow up, Ashley?
Yep,
So how much higher will how high will the foundation be above the actual ground that exists there now? What'll the top of the concrete look like? The slab?
Yeah. So, I mean, for the existing slab foundation for the smaller northerly structure, it's 1 to 2 inches above grade.
And I guess, Brian, in an area that is chronically flooding, to me, that's awfully close to the flood level, which I would worry about for any homeowner building in there or living in there. It's fine if it's a barn and the cow gets their feet wet, but I think this is going to be 2 residences, and I walk there on a very regular basis, one of my regular loops, and that area is wet a lot. And I'm surprised you wouldn't try and actually on your own volition raise it so it's a foot above grade or more.
Just to keep in mind that the structure itself is not within the land subject to flooding. We have that flagged out in the field based on where we've and others have observed high water. So we're not working per se within the land subject to flooding. This is all within the buffer zone to that. And, we feel that the foundation design is pretty innovative and takes into consideration the high groundwater concerns to avoid and minimize those impacts.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? If not, I'll open it up for public comment. Please remember to state your name and your relationship to the project, or your address if you're in proximity. Arthur Reed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. As you know, I represent the Lowies, the immediate butters to the southeast of the property, who've been expressing their concern with this all along. And obviously, we appreciate the changes that have been made as far as the house being moved entirely outside the 50-foot buffer. However, there's still a waiver involved in this project, as noted, with regard to the separation from groundwater, which is not being maintained, and as to which a waiver is being requested. And considering the overall hydrology in the area, the known high water table, the effect that all of this is going to have upon the surrounding area, I think that it is not an appropriate case for the waiver of the 2-foot separation from groundwater, particularly in connection with the, as was noted by Commissioner Beal, the intense development of this small site. So I would urge you again to not grant any waivers, which would mean that the project, since it would not be able to maintain the 2-foot separation, should not be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Freeman, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just mention that since the land banks purchased this property, we have become much more engaged in the area. It just so happened that it coincided with our beginning kind of a restoration process and examining a restoration of Lily Pond. And so we have spent a lot of time since 2021, when we purchased this property, looking at hydrology, looking at stormwater that's coming into the area. And we have just really done in-depth investigations into really stormwater and hydrology, which is what we're here talking about today. The land bank, we are direct abutters at 36 Lily, and we remain concerned that the combination of being in the buffer to isolated land subject to flooding and the waiver request for the 2-foot separation to groundwater could result in an increase in standing water and or the duration of the standing water on land bank property. There, as Mr. Reed said, there's just a lot of water coming into this area, and having waivers for separation to groundwater is something that has the potential to just increase the amount of standing water during storm events in this area. The other thing that I wanted to mention was we really do appreciate the applicant both shrinking the size of the house. That was really great, so that it's not in the 50-foot buffer, and then also shifting the surfacing from gravel to a stabilized grass surface as well in the easement area. That's also very much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Let me just give a quick check to YouTube. All right, I am not seeing any public comment there. Brian, is it a possibility in this area to, actually lift the house up above the ground like you would do in a flood, a true flood zone?
Left over.
And Miss, okay, perfect. Thank you for muting. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a common practice to construct it that way. I guess I'd have to confer with some structural engineers and builders to see about the feasibility of that. Also, I took a look at some of the photographs and just to clarify a question that Mark had raised about the slab elevation. I think the existing slab is probably on the order of like 6 inches above grade. That's not final grade, so there will be some smoothing out there, but it's probably a little bit closer to that. But I see Dan has his hand raised.
Yes. Thank you for answering that question, Brian. Dan Bailey, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I'm going to suggest is that we continue. I think that we can get back with Brian and some of the engineering folks and address some of these groundwater issues and hydrology issues. And we'd like to come back and address those at the next hearing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. With only 4 sitting commissioners on this one, it makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that's part of it too. We understand that there was an exodus from Nantucket today for good reason.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Bailey, for offering that continuance. I just want to make sure if there's any other comments or questions, we get those out so that they, have the ability to work on them in this period. All right, so doesn't look like there are any other questions or comments. So January 5th for this one.
Please.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that moves
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you. That moves us on to Kaiser Realty Trust at 43 Millbrook Road, also represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden from LEC for the record, representing Kaisers. So the proposed project is the garage in that location. So we reduced the garage. Initially, it was 24 by 28. We reduced it to 24 by 24. And it's within the existing gravel parking space, privet hedge overlapping within the lawn area that's relatively flat. Intrusion into that 50-foot buffer zone is unavoidable due to the side yard setback, but more importantly, the location of the septic system underneath the existing gravel driveway. Thanks, Will, in that location. So I know we discussed this a little bit, but just to kind of go over this a little bit more, Title V, so the state DEP requires a 10-foot minimum setback for a slab foundation to an existing leach field. And, that's not an arbitrary setback. That goes into the functionality of the system. Because engineering wise, I think the closer you get, it starts to compromise the functionality of the system. And so with good reason, that is a technical setback that we are bound to. And DEP is not going to issue waivers to minimize that setback because they can't affirm the functionality of the septic system moving forward. Now, what we have done as mitigation, further mitigation, in addition to reducing the structure itself, we are proposing to revegetate the lawn area or portion thereof that's 1,110 square feet to be coupled with the proposed invasive species management area, restoration area within the 25 to the 50-foot buffer zone. So cumulatively, the restoration mitigation area is 2,450, which in comparison to the proposed 169 square feet of the garage in the 50-foot amounts to a mitigation ratio of 14.5 to 1, pretty significant increase in an improvement over existing conditions. And I know Pete's on the call and can answer any questions, but we feel that the project won't adversely affect the resource areas. There's a subsurface infiltration system behind the garage, and we are providing significant mitigation in the form of the revegetation, invasive species management restoration area. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Brian, are you suggesting that you're going to wipe out the lawn that's existing back there in total or just in portion right now?
For what was highlighted, stippled on the plan, that's 1,110 square feet, and that's within the closer vicinity to the open water body pond. And we are proposing to revegetate that with a native herbaceous seed mix.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I know I really appreciate revegetating part of the actual wetland. I am nervous about just seeding it, so that we'll probably have survivability type conditions to make sure that, native species actually germinate and survive there. But I'm assuming that is something you guys would be okay with.
Yeah, we would expect monitoring to ensure successful establishment.
Okay. Because I know with seeding, it takes a little bit longer to do that. So,
correct.
All right, if there aren't any other questions or comments from commissioners, we'll open this up for public comment. Do not see any public comment on YouTube at the moment. I also don't see any on the Zoom call. Will, do we have everything we would need to close?
Indeed, we do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. I'll give Joe the second. By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're on for a bunch of these, Brian, so I got to ready myself.
That's
One
the
more
Brian
than-
Madden show.
One more and then a little break.
So we have Purcell at 32 Dukes Road, represented by Brian.
I have to recuse from this one like I did the last time.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
So Brian Madden, again, for the record, representing Purcell's. At the last meeting, based off of some comments received by the commission, we revised, or I'll say the architect revised the proposed cottage to remove the basement access stairwell that was previously within the 50-foot buffer zone to that offsite IBW. And additionally, per the request by the commission, we removed a stone retaining wall at the end of the driveway that was also within the 50-foot, and we're substituting that with a landscaping row of landscaping. So as currently revised, there's no proposed structures in the 50-foot buffer zone. And hopefully that addresses the commission's concerns.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? And I know I appreciate the changes.
It's all Joe. Topham.
If there are no questions or comments from commissioners, we'll open it up to the public. So public comment on 32 Dukes Road. Not seeing any comments on YouTube. Will, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, we do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Mike, I'll give you the motion. Joe, I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski.
Aye.
That carries with Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. And that moves us on to trustees of Eel Point Nominee Trust at 77 Hummock Pond Road, represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. Good evening. Paul Santos. Excuse me, on behalf of the applicant Eel Point Road Nominee Trust. This is a notice of intent that came before you at last month's meeting. It's for the proposed removal of an existing dwelling, construction of a new dwelling in essentially the same general location, construction of a garage dwelling, abandonment of an existing septic system, and site remediation with associated grading, landscaping, and utility installation within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. This site is located at 77 Hummock Pond Road. It's an existing dwelling that has been there for some time. And what we are proposing to do is raise the existing dwelling, reconstruct in generally the same footprint area, and then add the proposed garage dwelling outside of the 50. A portion of the existing structure is located within the 50-foot no build. We would be removing approximately 100 square feet of that area within the 50, and then also eliminating an existing on-site septic system, connecting the site to sewer, and potentially connecting the site from an existing well to water, which is all located on Hummock Pond Road. I had asked the commission at the last meeting to include this as a site visit, just because I felt it was important for them to maybe see the site. And it may change some of their opinions with regard to what we were proposing at the first meeting. I know some of the commission members did go. Chloe and Finn showed up also. And I'm happy to kind of answer any questions or get some feedback with regard to the commission's viewing of the site for those members that did have the opportunity to see it. I think originally the question was, our intent was to raise the building, place a new foundation in place of what was there now, and then continue its present location. We would not be proposing a full foundation on the site. We would be proposing only a crawl space due to the groundwater table. We do have, as part of our application, a waiver request with regard to reconstruction of the existing structure. We would be including there the groundwater separation only to the extent that would be removing what's there now and replacing it with a footing in a crawl space. And also, for those of you who did see the site, there is some, fenced-in garden areas on the property that occur actually within the area of the bordering vegetated wetland. The intent here would be to remove those areas from the site, from the wetland area, and then obviously revegetate and reestablish the 25-foot no disturb zone also. That is all associated with the drainage ditch and bordering vegetated wetland that runs essentially in an east-west direction on the property. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, maybe get a little feedback with regard to whether some opinions may have changed once they saw the site, and then kind of decide whether, we're in a position to close tonight, or whether we come back with a different building configuration with regard to the commission's feeling on the 50-foot no build. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Mike and Will, you can stop the screen share. Thank you. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Paul. It was helpful to go out to the site with Chloe and Finn. The site is quite messy, as we saw. So I think everybody appreciates the cleanup that will happen there. So my question is on the tear out of the foundation where it is, you'd essentially just be with the overdig at this point, as far as going any, just temporarily. The structure is getting no larger, so the foundation would only represent the overdig into the 50, which would then be backfilled to where it is currently.
That is correct. Actually, I mean, the footprint will be a little bit smaller because we're removing that one section, about 100 square feet in the 50. But essentially, it would be a removal of the foundation. It's only a crawl space that's out there now. So we'd be removing the existing crawl and then replacing with a new foundation.
Okay, in the crawl space, I assume, is Chloe had mentioned the high groundwater there is what would only allow the crawl space.
Correct. We're not seeking to go, that's correct. That's correct. I mean, when you drive into that site, if you notice to the right, there was a mounded area. That's the existing on-site septic system. That's why it's mounded, was because of the high groundwater. The good thing here is that since this house was originally constructed, a force main has been run down Hummock Pond Road, and we now have the ability to tie this into sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, go ahead.
Yes, I did the site visit also with the rest of the folks. I never saw a worse dump. The town dump looks great compared to that. It's really a shame to have the site looking the way that site looks. Going in there and tearing all that stuff out is going to be a tremendous improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Mark?
Thank you, Ashley. Paul, I did go out to visit the site today. I couldn't make the meeting on Monday. And my first thought was, I'm amazed that properties like this still exist on Nantucket that are essentially abandoned. And you just don't even see sites like that anymore on Nantucket. They've all been upgraded or developed. Paul, at the last meeting, I think I asked, if my memory serves me, for the number of square feet that are potentially buildable that are outside the 50-foot zone. And I was wondering if you were able to get that number for me. I know it's a pain, but you might have to I want to know if you could reconfigure the house to be within the triangle that within the setbacks and outside the 50-foot. I just didn't know if you're able to get that number for me to see if it could be a decent sized house in there, just with a little different configuration.
If you give me a minute, Mark, I can give you a quick little calculation. Sure. I'll just do 60.
Just as an aside, Will, my classroom lights do that to me when I'm grading at my desk for too long.
It's we're working hard to save energy because the interval is not that long.
It shows off the holiday lights behind you very nicely, though.
I'll let Morgan know.
I'm looking behind you, Ashley, and
Are you looking for holiday or the dog?
Holiday. Well, the doggy's there probably, but
Yeah, I decorated my grandparents, like the main house, because I was supposed to have family coming for Christmas. So all my decorations are over there, and my family canceled for Christmas because of the storm. So that's where my decorations are.
Mark, I mean, it's kind of it's a triangle basically. When you look at outside the 50 to the zoning setbacks, it would be under 2,000 square feet. when you look at that total area.
Yeah,
You know, it's again, is it possible, Mark? Yes, I'm sure we could come up with something to put in that triangle or generally in that area outside the 50. Again, in this situation, you know, is the benefit of getting this site cleaned up, refurbishing the 25-foot no disturb and so forth, and, you know, living with that building where it's essentially where it's always been. You know, is it possible? The answer is yes. I mean, there'd be something that we could do there. I think right now I have an approximate, the structure I have is at 1344. The existing proposed 34 by 20, that's 1344. And I think the garage is 480. So I'm looking at about 1824 square feet is what we're proposing. You know, could I try to potentially squeeze that into the triangle area? Again, at the end of the day, does it really make much difference? I'm not too sure.
well, I really like the idea of cleaning up the site, Paul. It appeals to me a lot. I mean, I was amazed when I walked it today.
And you have seen it since it's been cleaned up a little bit, quite honestly.
Wow.
There was a number of cars there at one point.
I was eyeballing the 5 bicycles.
So.
All right, I see Linda's hand up.
Yeah, I think it's a net gain. I'm willing to give him what he wants in order to get it cleaned up. And I don't think it's going to have as big an impact. So I'm happy because I was in there when it was not cleaned up. And so I think this is an absolutely wonderful thing that's happening here. And I think we need to compromise here.
Thank you, Linda. I know I was on the site visit as well. It was an experience, I will describe it, and I'm sure there will be random treasures found in with all that junk. But Paul, my question to you, the current house is almost like C-shaped where there's kind of an indent on the side opposite the wetland. I guess like maybe the east side.
Yes.
I know you said you just kind of put a box on the plan. Would there be a possibility to like shift that so you still have that same kind of indent that wouldn't be structure within the 50? It's just something I thought might give us a little less structure in that area.
Oddly enough, the indent is completely outside the 50.
Right, so I was thinking like if the new design actually, like if you flipped kind of the house, like you could gain that space as wetland buffer.
I mean, I think we're gonna, again, I generally put 2 kind of just general boxes. I think what I'd really like from the commission is at least to know that I could potentially, you know, maintain that existing piece in the 50. And then I'm sure there's something we can do to, you know, instead of just having 2 just rectangles, having some type of, what's going to be there is going to be modest. I think we all agree to that. It's going to be a modest setup. But again, I've eliminated, what I've tried to do is right now it's not zoning compliant with regard to the front yard setback. I've tried to cure that. So at the end of the day, we're just completely zoning compliant. And then we've basically tried to stay within that existing footprint within the 50. I mean, I think there's, you know, at the end of the day, if I can maybe try to shave some more off inside the 50, I think that's something we can do. I'd come back with a minor mod with that and kind of show the commission once I'm assuming I'm going to be back before you with a minor mod once we kind of come up with a more palatable architectural layout for the site. But we'll make every attempt. I mean, obviously we'll make every attempt we can to try to, you know, soften what's happening out there.
Thank you. I was surprised just how open that ditch was, like with the proximity to the house and the water. So, you know,
that's what the watershed comes up in from the Hummock Pond, I believe, through the backside to Hummock Pond and kind of in this area. It's a pretty good substantial, I think, watershed that kind of feeds through that area.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Now we'll open this up for public comment. So public comment on 77 Hummock Pond Road. I do not see anything on YouTube. I also don't see anybody on the Zoom call. Will, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, we do.
Paul, would you like to close?
Yes, I would, Ashley. Just to kind of reiterate, obviously, we've asked for a waiver for obviously would be work within the 25 and the 50. I would also like to include in there, to the extent necessary, we would need for the removal of the existing foundation and so forth, the groundwater separation distance too, which is, I think, would be part of our waiver request also.
Okay. And then I guess, Paul, I should ask this before we close. The areas that you're cleaning up, you would be willing to revegetate if they don't revegetate themselves, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah. I believe, let's check the body of the application, Ashley, and see if,
It's probably in there somewhere. There was a night.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Would be obviously with native vegetation.
Okay. All right, Paul, so you would like to close?
Yes, please.
All right, is there a motion to close?
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair.
All right, Linda, I'll give you the motion. Joe, I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you, everyone, and thank you for the site visit. I think it helped tremendously in this case.
Yes, definitely. And you have a new little employee in Finn.
Yeah, Finn is getting his wetland indoctrination very early. So,
all right, thank you, Paul. That moves us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank. Tom Nevers, represented by Rachel Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Rachel Freeman. I'm representing the Land Bank this evening with a request to install a set of removable aluminum stairs at the Land Bank property, beach access to the west of the Tom Nevers Fairgrounds. The site contains a coastal beach, a coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and land under ocean resource areas. However, this is a water dependent project and a water dependent use. So to the best of our knowledge, we're not requesting any waivers for this project. We believe there's not going to be any adverse impacts to bank height, stability, and or the use of the bank as a sediment source. If anything, we're hoping that this will allow the bank to not continue to degrade under foot traffic and maybe revegetate at some level. So I am happy to answer any questions or specifics about the stairs themselves or the application.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners?
It's pretty straightforward.
It is pretty straightforward. And I know I just want to thank you, Rachel, and thank the Land Bank for trying to continue to allow the public to access our beaches and these important wetland resource areas. Because without you adding stairs, it would be impossible in so many of these spots. Mark, did I see your hand go up?
You took the words out of my mouth.
Okay. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rachel, I just have a question that that might help us in future endeavors on with the aluminum stairs. Are those custom made or do you buy them sort of stock and add on to them?
It's actually an interesting process. We use a company called Alumidoc, and they come in different lengths, like a 10-foot, 12-foot, 14-foot length. But what you can do is what we've done is because we have a number of these, and you're going to hear from me again tonight about more beach stairs, but we can trade out different sizes and different lengths depending on the site and how it's changed over time. The other thing is if it's too long, you can bury it. You can bury the bottom. So there's ways to manipulate these so that they're usable in different areas depending on the year. That's how we've been doing it at this point.
And then my last question is, do you have a plan or intent on, will you pull them up for the winter? They're storm dependent. How does that?
We pull them up for storms and for the winter.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Not, we'll open it up for public comment. So public comment on the land bank. Do not see any public comment on YouTube or on the Zoom call. Will, do we have everything we would need to close?
Absolutely.
Rachel, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Mark, are you making that motion? Joe.
I'll second.
Joe got,
whoever.
yeah, Joe got you with his hand on that one. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye, Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski. Oh, you're muted.
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
that carries unanimously. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to Nantucket Wales End 2 LLC at 43 and 45 Squam Road, represented by Brian Madden. Mark?
I'll be abstaining on this one.
Okay.
All right, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants, representing the applicant. The proposed project involves a dwelling, a garage, barn, a reconfigured pervious driveway with associated regrading, decking, hardscaping, landscaping, and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to coastal dune to the east. There's BVW associated with Squam Pond to the north and an IVW to the south, extending onto the subject parcel. There's no proposed work within the 25-foot buffer zone. Greater than 50% of the area between the 25 and 50 will be maintained. No structures proposed within the 50. All structures will maintain greater than a 2-foot separation to high groundwater. The septic leach field is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So no waivers required for this project. So it's been designed in compliance with the regulations. And we are still waiting on natural heritage, but would appreciate any comments or questions if there are any.
Thank you, Brian.
Oh, just to point out, so everything you see in orange on this plan is either previously approved or pre-existing. I know there's been a couple recent filings over the last couple of years on this project.
Yes. Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? I know, Brian, I had a question about the barn. Is it a real barn holding animals, or is it just being titled a barn?
I don't believe it's intended for animals.
Okay.
It has gone through HDC. I don't know, or I think I know a portion of this has gone through HDC. I don't know if the entire T has gone through HDC, but the intent is it's not for there to be animals in there.
Okay, just because there are like numerous negative impacts associated with like animals that would be held in a barn. So we would not want like horse manure or whatever that close to the resource area.
Understandable. If I'm misspeaking, I'll certainly correct myself at the next meeting, but I'm pretty sure that that's not the intent here.
Okay, because that gave me pause for concern. So thank you for clarifying.
No problem.
So again, any questions, comments from commissioners? And if not, I'll open it up for public comment on 43 and 45 Squam Road. So it does appear that we have some public comment on YouTube. Tony Cahill, and I'm not sure, Tony, if you can put your address, if you like are in a butter, that would be helpful for us. But he has 3 questions. First, the finished elevations of the main house compared to the existing structures, drainage runoff to Squam Pond, and elevation above groundwater separation.
Yeah, through the chair. I'm just toggling back and forth between screens here. So This may be a little bit out of order, but so high groundwater is documented at elevation 8.8. The garage on slab is at 13.2. The barn is 17.0, and the dwelling with the crawl space foundation within the 100-foot buffer zone, that first floor elevation is 17.0. I don't know what that is in relation to the existing structure. I don't have that in front of me, but we do have greater than that 2-foot separation to high groundwater. The runoff from the structures is going to be directed to a series of subsurface infiltration systems that we've depicted on the site plan to prevent any runoff directly towards the resource areas, but to promote natural infiltration into the groundwater for recharge. And what was the other question? Oh, I think that may answer. I don't know what the existing first floor elevation of the existing structure is off the top of my head.
Well, thank you. You provided answers to most of those questions. And Tony Cahill replied he's at 44 Squam Road for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so if there aren't any other public comments and no questions or comments from commissioners, Brian, would you like to continue? Oh, Don?
Yeah, I could just clarify something. Well, while you were talking, I was trying to find the elevation of the existing house. I couldn't find the exact elevation, but it is around elevation 17. And it actually has 2 elevations. There's about a 1.5 foot difference as the site gets lower going to the south. And then to answer the question about the barn, probably shouldn't have labeled it as a barn. That's what the architects gave us. It just looks like a barn from the outside, but it's, you know, more like a cabana type structure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I like that teamwork too.
Thank you, Don.
It looks like Mike has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just more of a comment and just it was helpful on such a busy site plan to have Mark Coutone's plans, at least for me, accompany him. So thank you for that.
No problem. Yeah, there's a
I
lot
like
going
the
on
orange.
here.
Yeah, I like the orange and the other color.
Yeah, that helped tremendously for me too.
So Mr. Cahill asked a follow-up question within maximum height elevations.
I can answer that as well. If as far as zoning heights are concerned, every structure like this, we do check the heights with the architectural plans, which is measured from the average grade between existing and proposed. So I can state for the record that that's been confirmed and checked to be in compliance with the zoning requirements.
Which is 30 feet max.
Correct.
Thank you. All right, so if there are no further questions, we'll continue until January 5th for Natural Heritage.
Please.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So that moves us on to JFM Cacique LLC at 36 Easton Street, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC. The proposed project involves a garage structure within the northerly portion of the site. There's some living space on the second floor to that. The structure itself is located greater than 100 feet from the harbor, the coastal beach, and the top of the coastal bank. However, there is the vegetated wetland that's across Easton Street in the parking area along the north side there. So that's the edge of the wetland. The garage is within the 100-foot buffer zone, but is outside the 50-foot buffer zone. The garage is going to be designed on a slab foundation with flood vents in compliance with flood zone standards. to allow water to freely pass through in the event of a storm. And there's some minimal updates, modifications to the driveway, the pervious driveway, for the vehicular access and parking. With that, I'll turn over to questions. Oh, sorry. Let me just. So we did take a look at. Apologies. We did take a look at the groundwater elevation of that vegetated wetland that's kind of tidally influenced, and we are outside of groundwater for the slab foundation, but within the 2-foot separation. So we have requested the waiver for that.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And I apologize. We didn't have this plan initially in our packet, and I didn't have the time to kind of circle back to it. Are you also doing proposed decks on the front of that building on the water side? Is that?
Oh, sorry. That had been previously approved under that order of conditions. I think that was issued last year. We got the file number right there in that bubbled. Jeff Blackwell had presented that one.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, I apologize. Normally I've taken a little bit better look at these, but I just didn't have time to circle back. So thank you.
No problem.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. So we'll open it up for public comment on 36 Easton Street. Does not appear that we have any public comment. Will, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, we do.
Ryan, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'm going to give it to Mike. I think he beat you with his hand, and I'll give you the second, Linda.
Cool.
So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And that moves us on to Nantucket Island's Land Bank at 40 Western Avenue, represented by Rachel Freeman.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. My name is Rachel Freeman, and I'm representing the Land Bank with another request for beach stairs. We have had pretty heavy erosion on some of our South Shore properties, and this is a classic example. This property is at 40 Western Ave, and as you can see in the picture that Will is putting up, there is a beach dune or dune field followed by, okay. There's a dune or dune field resource area, as well as a coastal bank. And at the northern end, there's a very small parking area. This has been frequently used by people who are seeking kind of off the beaten track beaches. And what we found this summer was when our access point became too eroded, and the public that were using it would cross over actually onto private property to access the beach. So we are proposing to put in another set of aluminum beach stairs in this location. The most commonly used access is actually to the east, but at this time, the best location to put the stairs is slightly further west, and we just happen to have another existing trail there. So we're proposing to put the stairs in there this winter. Similar to our last application, we're asking for some flexibility in that we're not necessarily going to be installing new paths, but we might bounce back and forth between these two paths and trying to find the best fit year to year, because we do tend to change out stairs. We pull them during storms and during large wind events, and therefore whatever the bank looks like when we come back is what we're trying to fit to. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any questions specific to the site or pertaining to our aluminum stair installations.
Thank you, Rachel. Mike, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rachel. My question is, do you ever put signage? That site looks pretty vast. Is there any signage or that would direct people to the stairs so they're not trouncing through the dunes? I don't even know if that's possible, but.
That dune field is interesting in that there's pretty well defined trails, but we do actually have signage out there now that tells people that you cannot access the beach through that one trail where basically at this point you'd go over the cliff. So when it becomes an unusable trail and it's no longer an effective beach access, we do generally sign it. We have not necessarily tried to restrict people to individual trails in that area because what we're seeing is people tend to be pretty consistent in their patterning. And it's not a hugely highly used area, but there is more than one trail.
Okay, great. I think that, if they can't get down, it's just wise to point them in that direction and you're already way ahead of it. So thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and Mike, I appreciate that question because I was going to ask the same thing. I think probably I'm familiar with these beaches because I park my bike right up the street. But people do deviate from that trail. So probably having a sign just pointing them to the second trail because people do jump right off the edge and they were kind of doing it all summer. And I know you guys are aware, but I am just so concerned by the rapid erosion that's happened out there over the last couple of years, but specifically the last few months. It's been it's a high hit area right now.
Very much so, very much so. And like I said, we did sign that one trail and we can definitely direct people towards the existing access and that where we're going to put the stairs to try and get people to use that.
And I appreciate that. I remember this summer when you put in a sign that said no beach access. So I think that was definitely helpful. Yeah.
Except then everyone went to the private homeowners next door.
I didn't notice that piece because I tend to use the other access, but I'll keep a better eye on that.
I think
Of course they did.
Yes.
They'll always find a way.
So any other questions, comments from commissioners? If not, we'll open it up for public comment. I don't see any public comment on YouTube. I also don't see any on Zoom. Will, do we have everything we'd need to close?
Yes, we do.
Rachel, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
forgetting my part here. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
So that moves us on to Hang 10 LLC at 21 Meter Street, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm before the commission tonight with a notice of intent for property Meter Street, located within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Also with me tonight is the applicant. We have a site where there was he's a new owner and there was a lot of debris on the site. He had come in and cleaned it up, took a half a dozen or more truckloads of all kinds of debris, fences, tires, sort of been a dumping ground lot down there in town for quite a while. The plan on the screen right now is actually for the adjacent parcel. If you were to scroll up two more, keep going if you would, please. Yeah, there you go. That's the plan. And so what we've done is there was an enforcement order issued for work done within land subject to coastal storm flowage without permitting. The owner had never even heard of land subject to coastal storm flowage, didn't know anything about it, requiring permits. And so all work has stopped. He had installed a landscape timbers around the perimeter. The surrounding properties had been pumping water or letting water flow onto this property. So the idea was to stop the flow of that water. He had hoped to raise the grade to the top of the timbers, but I've explained that the performance standard for land subject to coastal storm flowage doesn't allow the raising of the grade. So in fact, what we are proposing is simply to restore the grade to match the surrounding grades. And we've put spot elevations, as you can see on the plan, around the from the grades on the properties around the outsides of the timbers, and that's what would be matched. We'd like to maintain the timber essentially as a curb. That would be, sticking up and exposed just to not have the surface water from rainstorms or people that have sump pumps and that sort of thing to continue to flow onto this property, understanding that grade can't be increased from what it previously was. So the idea is to, he has stopped all work and wants to get the site cleaned back up and just to restore the grade and, put down a seed mix and have it essentially as a a lawn type area, put a driveway in, not looking for a maintained type lawn, just so that it's not fallow soil, and to put a picket fence as shown on the plan to delineate his property. Again, there's been a lot of dumping over the years onto this property. And we understand that the commission just at the 11th hour today has received some opposition letter and information asserting that there's a vegetated wetland on this property. We were aware of those previous assertions, and included with our filing, part of what we did with the application was to hire a credentialed wetland scientist who did investigations on this property and borings, and that report's included here as well. And he concluded, that there is not a vegetated wetland. It was not a vegetated wetland that met the criteria for the state act or locally on the property. So we believe that the only resource area of concern here is land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicant understands that that work should have been permitted, but again is looking to restore the site to meet the current performance standards. And with that, we would be happy to take questions or concerns that you might have with the application.
Thank you, Art.
Oh, one other thing, if I may, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. We also did include orders of conditions or the site plan that you had up was from just 2022 earlier this year for an adjacent property that again didn't show any vegetated wetland on this property, as well as on the opposite side of the property, a certificate of compliance. So this plan is from 2022. Done by Mr. Santos, and our property is our locus is the property referred to as the leg property. Again, no vegetated wetlands shown on that property, and all of the work that's been currently approved on this property, not shown in any kind of a buffer zone to that. And then if you could continue to scroll down, please. And here you have locus is just to the left-hand side, if you will, or to the west of that building number D. The claim for was that on the opposition letter is that wetland went right up to that building. Those buildings, that site was essentially completely razed to the ground in 2015 timeline and completely rebuilt. All of this work with a certificate of compliance issued with no notation or depiction or there was no wetland where they say there was right next door, and it's not shown on this plan either to further support that. So this is all, I know some of the current commissioners are involved in this application, and certainly the one for the previous plan. Again, I think that you had a bit of a topographically low area where there was, a lot of water that started flooding down in there. But I don't believe, based on the investigations we've done, that it met the criteria of a wetland, and clearly the commission didn't for either of these two applications. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? And I know, Art, I just had a question. This had been up before us, and then was it pulled because we had a change in commission? I'm just trying to remember kind of the history here.
No, we pulled it so that we could engage a professional wetland scientist to provide the information to the commission in response to what came up. And again, we wanted to make sure we got somebody that was credentialed for the record.
Okay, thank you for explaining that again. It does make me nervous seeing photos with the clear typha species in them, like identifying obviously wetland vegetation, without soils and some of the other information. There's no way to really say. And at this point, you have hired a wetland scientist, and I did read the report, and I thank you for that. That does demonstrate that at least currently there's no provable wetland on site. I just want to question Will and ask if staff has been out and would agree with that assessment.
Jeff and I actually went out today and talked about it quite a bit. And I think we would agree with that assessment based on all the information that's before us.
Okay, thank you. So again, any questions or comments from commissioners before I open it up to the public? Looks like no. So Diane Coombs, you've had your hand up for a while. I'll give the floor to you.
Yes, I would like to comment and get some information straight.
And can you just state if you have a property in proximity to this project, if you're in a butter, can you state your address?
44 Union Street, Nantucket, Mass.
Thank you.
Also, I would say one of your certified letters to Al Keen at 6 Fayette Street was sent to an article that's 5 years old, so he never got the letter until I called him.
Okay. I don't have perspective on like where that is, but hopefully someone can.
That's
into that.
the house, the 46 Union, 44 Union, 6 Fayette, 4 Fayette
Thank
are all abutting people on that piece of property. If you look on the site plan, you will see all those addresses going around. Mine being the smallest amount. Really, it's a corner where 3 houses come together.
So do you have any questions or comments on the proposal or any wetland impacts?
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to tell you that I have lived here for 52 years. I know that piece of land as well as I know my own. It may not have been classified as a wetlands because some of the past owners, that's how they wanted it to be. That piece of property up at 46 Union would belong to the Lewises. He built it. The grandfather, Richard Lewis, built it. It then transferred to a member of the family of Brian Legg, and then to the Kims. I am only the second owner of my property, which was built in 1835. The corner where all these 3 properties meet is wet. Wet, wet, wet. When I bought the house in 1972, my basement was dry. I had books live down there, everything else. It was dry, you could live in it. In the storm of 78, the foundation was hit and the floor of my basement had to come up. There were counted 6 streams underneath, 6 water things under the basement. And the basement was replaced. And
Mrs. Combs, how do you think that this project at 21 Meter Street is going to impact your project as far as wetland?
Because I'm trying to get to, there is a natural flow, or there used to be a natural flow coming down from Orange Street above ground. There's natural flow underground. The sewer system along Union Street is rotten. So the water comes down both above ground and below ground. My whole yard, I have a town elm tree over in the corner, which we have dug around so that its roots are not in the water. It is, the water below ground is maybe 12 inches. And they claimed that the people at 46 upped their property by a foot or so and paved it. That is not true. They did not. They put in a temporary paving so the contractors didn't ruin the land.
Yeah, and so we're not here to talk about any like enforcements on neighboring properties, but trying to focus on 21 Meter Street and how you feel this application might change the water flow.
Can't have anything there that stops the natural flow of water from wherever it comes from getting down to the harbor. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't put up boards as he has and raise the property up a foot or so. I have sat there and watched this because it's right out my window. I am afraid of what it will do to my property to make it unlivable, because the water will not flow further than that property. And when it doesn't flow further than that property, it backs up onto mine and whoever else is next door. That's what I'm saying. It has not been studied. There was a letter, I understand, by the people who live over on, I don't know whether it's 4 Meter Street. She was going to buy the land, and she had it examined by an engineer. And I understand he's done work for the Concom before, and he said it in 2020. That piece of land was an existing wetland. You must have the letter because it was sent in. I just don't know his last name because I couldn't get the letter.
Yes, I believe you're referring to the information that David Haynes sent us today. And I think if I'm understanding your concerns correctly, it's the like timber kind of wall around the property that you're concerned about stopping water flow. I just want to make sure that I'm clear.
I think, yes, it's that any piece of property that has stopped the flow from going from Union Street to the harbor has been because the land has been increased, as happened at number 6 Fayette, number 4 Fayette, and there was a natural flow. In the old days, we had no problem. My dining room and kitchen was in the basement of this house, and now you have to have a pair of boots to get in. So I am concerned about the flow, the natural flow of being stopped.
Thank you. And that is something we can address under land subject to coastal storm flowage, as far as kind of water movement. In some cases, there have been many hydrological changes on Nantucket, especially recently, with kind of sea level rising water tables, et cetera.
I understand that, but you said that was Hayes that wrote the letter. This was a letter that was sent to you in 2020, not recently.
Okay, so unfortunately, this application is opening new tonight. So anything that was submitted for an earlier application would need to be resubmitted to us as part of this hearing.
Okay, well, I will get hold of that engineer. I just didn't have time today to track him down, but he was somebody that Concom used, and I will find out from people who it is and get a copy of the letter and have it sent to you, okay, from his office.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate your participation. It's always good to have the public voice their concerns.
I will be happy to voice my concerns. Yes.
Thank you. And I see Stephen Cohen, your hand up.
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So the issue for my client is not that they want to prevent the abutter from, or I should identify my client.
Sorry, Steve, can you say who you're representing?
Hello? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm just wondering what abutter you're representing.
What's going on?
But we can hear you.
I think this is just general buggy night for Zoom because everybody's had problems.
I mean, I'm still paranoid about my problems from a few weeks ago, so that'll forever scar me, that anxiety. Stephen, are you on? I'm not sure. We can hear you. But now we can't.
Yeah, because he was on by face before. You could see his face before.
Yeah, his picture never came through. So, he might be trying to connect via his phone.
There's a new iPhone, yeah.
Yep, staying with my old flip phone. Don't have this problem.
That's what all the teenagers should have too.
Yeah.
I do not see Steven. So, we'll see if you come back. We'll see if there's any other public comment on this one. I do not see any on YouTube, but clearly there are public concerns. Any other public comment on the Zoom call?
I don't see his phone number ringing in here either.
No. So we definitely have concerns hanging out there. Not quite sure what to do about it. At this point, I think I'd actually like to do a site visit out here, to tell you the truth, just to see how these timber boards
You're going to call him? Okay. He's calling in now.
Okay.
He's calling in now.
Thank you, Linda. I think it would be good to do a site visit out here just because of a little bit of back and forth. I think the site dynamics would be good to see as a group. Because again, clearly there's abutter concerns, but it also sounds like there's build out on abutting properties. And I think it would be good to see on the ground how those interactions are taking place. Again, I don't see Stephen on here yet. I don't know if other commissioners would like to do a site visit here, or how you feel at this point. If you have questions, Linda, I see your hand up.
There is an iPhone coming in, but I don't know if it's him.
Great. So the iPhone that's currently on is Jeff Blackwell.
I saw Jeff's face a minute ago. The properties that are between it and the harbor, There are those four things up on stilts. Those are all on helical piers way above the ground, so water is moving freely through there. The house that's on the Union Street side is an older house on a regular foundation. So there's been some build out, but the new structures, the one at Fayette, the four that are in front of this one going towards the water on Meter, they're all on helical piers. So there hasn't been any obstruction because they were required by you guys before I came on to do that. And Glowacki's building that was moved over there in between this one and this property and the harbor is also on piers, painfully on piers. So the water is moving freely, at least from that part down to the water, because all the new structures are not on solid foundations, they're all on helical piers.
Madam Chair.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, Stephen, I'll go to you in 1 second because I know we lost you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you.
No, it's all right. Tech problems. I totally understand them. Yeah, I think it's maybe the timber boards around that they're concerned is stopping water flow. So that's why I would maybe like a site visit. Joe, I saw your hand up, and then Stephen, I'll go back to you.
I concur with a site visit.
Okay, thank you. And Stephen, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. I just want, let me leave the other meeting so I don't have this feedback. Okay. So I represent two abutters, one at 46 Union Street and one at 3 Francis Street, which are both abutters to this property. And I want to say up front that my clients do not oppose development of this lot under the Wetlands Protection Act or the local bylaw. If the applicant has the ability to develop the lot, they should. My client has, or my clients have, two concerns. One is, to the extent that there was a wetland here that was disturbed and damaged, it should be restored and preserved. And secondly, that nothing should be done to negatively impact that wetland. I believe you have in your packets a letter from David Haynes, who you all know is a licensed expert in this matter. And David provided that in 2020, he looked at this site on 2 occasions and saw significant wetland plants, significant wetland hydrology, and did soil studies that show that there was essentially a marsh and wetland on this property, both under the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw. Because that study was done for a neighbor who was interested in purchasing the property, and the neighbor then decided not to purchase the property, nothing was filed with the commission. But David did meet with Jeff Carlson at the time, and Joanne Dodd at the time, who's no longer with the commission, but that Joanne was there at the time. And I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they appear to have agreed with David that those appeared to be both wetland soils and wetland plants. That's David's recollection. And so, the pictures that are submitted and the plants that are identified in those pictures by David, I think clearly identify that there was something here that would have been, that if it was still here, it would be considered a wetland. And I think that the commission should be requiring the restoration of that wetland. And even if the elimination of it or the disturbance to it was inadvertent by someone who didn't understand that there could be a wetland in town, that there, what land subject to coastal storm flowage is, and those kind of things. Even if the damage was inadvertent, it should be reversed and repaired. The second thing is the walls all the way around the property not only are artificially and inappropriately changing the grade, they're also interfering with the water flow in a way that the commission does not typically allow to happen within the 50-foot buffer. Those are, both structures and interference with the water flow that typically would not be allowed. So, our suggestion and recommendation is that the commission recognize the wetland was there, require a restoration of the wetland that was there, and then approve development of the lot subject to the appropriate buffers and the restrictions and limitations that the commission would typically have in place for a property with a wetland, as demonstrated by the pictures and information that Mr. Haynes submitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And while you were kind of trying to get back on, I don't know what you could hear or not, but we have kind of thrown around a site visit so we can get a better idea of the conditions here to determine some of the things you're talking about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's a great idea. Unfortunately, I think the plantings that are identified in the pictures from 2020 have now been, essentially clear cut and scraped away.
Yes, I know that the typha, because you can see the cattails in there, are gone, but I think it again would give us perspective on next steps if, how to proceed with a restoration if that's where the commission goes.
Thank you.
I add another question or statement
Yes, Mrs. Coombs.
on what Linda just said. Every house on Fayette Street is on a true foundation. The house at the corner of Washington and Fayette Street is my son-in-law's mother's house, and it was an old house, and it's on the same foundation. The next one coming up, Al Keen, is the one that didn't get the letter. He's on a regular foundation, and the house next to me, the 6th of Fayette Street, is one of the oldest houses in Nantucket. So what's been added has been added up. Before everybody got all picky about what we were doing, it was much more casual. Back in the 70s and 60s, it wasn't mattered. So I also want to say that if anybody wanted to come on my property to look at stuff at a different way, and Al's property or I would be more than happy to allow them.
Well, thank you.
Just to clarify, Madam Chair, I said the new construction between this lot and the water, which was Glowacki's building and those 4 stilts in front of me. I did not talk about Fayette Street because I lived on Fayette Street in one of those structures.
Thank you, Linda. And thank you, Mrs. Coombs, for offering for us to see perspective from your property. You can reach out to the Natural Resource Office and maybe connect on that. And then we could possibly do a site visit.
Yeah.
Mike, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment for things that roll in no respect to David Haynes, but things rolling in at noontime on meeting day make it very difficult to get perspective and have a good debate. So I'd appreciate getting things a little more promptly than this.
To you.
Yes, but unfortunately, this is a new application, so everything needs to be resubmitted. And I do agree with you there. I mean, I work full time, so when I check my email at lunch and there's new commission documents for that night's meeting, it's hard to review. And it's always better to have information ahead of time rather than kind of presented either at the meeting or just before. But I do think it again raises questions that I do remember from the last time this came up, which is why I know I would like a site visit just to make sure I'm thorough here. Again, any other questions, comments from commissioners or the public at this point? And if not, I'll ask Art, what would you like to do here? Would you allow?
I'd like to briefly respond to Mr. Cohen because I strongly disagree with some of the assertions that he made.
Okay.
In terms of the level of study that was done by, David Haynes, I'm not really sure. That's certainly not clear. Submitting a letter today about something from 2020 with no actual, some pictures. If that was determined to be a wetland, then there was no filings, no determination of applicability, and none of the other information supports that. And I certainly don't believe there's any way that this meets the criteria of a wetland under the Act, and I don't believe it does under the local bylaw either. And neither did our credentialed, scientist who looked at this. And not to go round and round, but I do want to be on record absolutely disagreeing with some of those assertions.
No, thank you, Art. I appreciate that because David's letter did come in pretty late, and you're right. That's not a wetland that's noticed on any file.
There's also, I would point out, if I not back, but if I may, through you, Madam Chair, this is you look at the aerial, there's no nearby water bodies other than the harbor. There's no hydraulic connections. Yes, there is, a flood zone, but that's what the enforcement was related to, is work, I believe, for the flood zone. And in terms of meeting the performance standards for that, the timbers, again, I just want to make sure that it's very clear, because other things have been said here, are not to act as retaining. And the fill is not coming up. That was our original proposal in the last application, and understand that doesn't meet that performance standard. The performance standard is shall not impact the ability of the land to contain floodwaters. The street side won't have a timber. It's open to the street, and the volume of floodwaters in that area is not going to change as a result of essentially having a curb. That all that we would be trying to do was to stop. Again, there's houses that happen to have downspouts and that sort of thing that are directed directly towards this property, so they can keep their water and we keep ours, and when there's a flood, everybody gets it and the performance standard is met. So I think that I just wanted to be on the record for meeting the performance standard and explaining that, so in case that wasn't clear. Thank you.
No, thank you, Art. I appreciate your explanation. Would you be willing to entertain a continuance just so the commission can see the site during a site visit?
Yeah, certainly. We want to work cooperatively with the commission. Whatever, I had checked in. I thought maybe there would be a site visit the other day. I had actually checked in on Monday in case that was the case. But if that's what you want to do, sure.
Thank you. I think some of the abutter concerns maybe weren't evident at that point in time, and had we had the information a little earlier, I think we probably would have done a site visit. So at this point, if there are no questions or comments, just because I do want to make sure everything's on the table for Art and his client, Art, would you be willing to continue until January 5th?
Yes, ma'am. Again, if I may just ask, because of the holiday, when will the site visit then be?
I believe it'll be the Tuesday. Normally when we have a Monday holiday.
I just want to confirm, because I certainly want to, attend your site visit.
Yeah.
It is January 2nd, just to confirm.
Thank you.
Okay, so it stays on Monday?
I unfortunately only have January 2nd on my calendar, but I'm pretty sure that's Monday, but that might be an error.
No, it's the second Monday.
Which I think is a holiday. Is that not a holiday for the town?
I believe it is. I know the school is off. So that might be a little bit of an oversight. And I think our site visits would shift until the Tuesday.
So
It is Monday as a holiday.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a note right now that we're going to do them Tuesday, because that is definitely the observed.
Okay. Thank you.
Tuesday at 4 p.m. Thank you, Art. And again, thank you for the public for participating. This will continue until January 5th. So that moves us on to Jen Sankety Lighthouse Trust at 37 Sankety Head Road, represented by Don Bracken. Oh, Don, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering, representing the applicant. Here we go. This is a 6.5 acre lot on the east side of Sankety Road. Currently, there's about 200 feet between the roadway and the top of where the coastal bank is. Coastal bank is the only resource area affecting the proposed project. Obviously, there's natural heritage area and coastal beach further to the east that we're not within the buffer zone for. So on the plan, we've shown that the 25, 50, and 100-foot buffer zones. You can see shaded, the large shaded areas represent the existing dwelling and decks and porches, and same with the cottage. They're located about 40 feet or so from the top of the coastal bank. We're moving both of them about 50 feet further toward the road. getting the entire cottage structure outside of the 100-foot buffer. In the main house, the foundation will be outside the 100-foot buffer, but there will be a section of porch and deck still within the 100-foot buffer. Also proposed as part of the project is to relocate the existing well, which is close to the top of the coastal bank right now. We're going to move that to the northwest by the road. The existing leaching facility is already outside the 100-foot buffer, but there are tanks and pump chambers and pipes within the 100-foot buffer and some within the 50-foot buffer that will also be removed as part of the project. There'll be a new driveway, pool, and cabana proposed that is also outside of the 100-foot buffer. The existing footprints of those structures will be backfilled with the material taken out for the new excavations, and the existing topsoil and subsoil will be retained on site to be used to cover those areas and to revegetate those areas. There is an existing section of lawn area within the 25-foot buffer that is proposed to be restored and naturally vegetated right in that area, correct. Be erosion control at the limit of the work. However, most of the site does slope away from the top of the coastal bank, so there'll be really very little chance of any erosion toward the resource area. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Don. Always appreciate when structures are moving away from these eroding banks. I'm sure it was in the application, but I don't remember. Do you know what the erosion rate is at this property?
I do not. We did not calculate that as part of the application.
Okay. You're moving away from it, but I was just curious.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? If not, we'll open it up for public comment. Do not see any public comment. Will, do we have everything we need to close?
Yes, we do.
Don, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I think Joe beat you with his hand, and he's
He
been
did.
trying
I saw that.
He's been trying all night, so I'm going to give it to him. And I'll give you the second, Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank
Thank
you. And that moves us to Huckleberry Friend Trust at 13 and 17 East Tristram Avenue, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm before you tonight with an application related to a set of beach stairs. The applicant has an existing boardwalk that approaches the beach stairs, instead of beach stairs that go down to timber beach stairs to a platform and down to a seasonal set of stairs over the stone revetment. And they would like to add a platform, timber walkway with another set of seasonal staircase over the revetment that would get them down to the eastern side of their property. So that's what we've shown in red on the plan. The existing stairs would be reconstructed in kind. They're aging a bit, and along the platform or the walkway, he would like to have a bench. We understand that the concerns with the coastal bank and minimizing that footprint, so that bench would be supported cantilevered off of the frame of the walkway to minimize the size of it, but just to have a nice place to sit down there. There's sort of a natural plateaued area right on top of the existing stone revetment. And again, the staircase over the would be seasonal and aluminum, similar to what's been approved for the land bank on your earlier applications, an Alumidoc type staircase.
Thank you, Art. Any questions or comments from commissioners? I know Art and this may seem unfavorable. I am not in favor of the bench. I think having a sitting area mid-coastal bank as far as like wetland scenic views and things isn't necessarily where I want to go. Or where I think we should go. This property is big. I used to work there, so I'm very familiar with it. And I think they have plenty of spots where they could sit and overlook kind of the resource area, but not be within it. So I think minimizing that profile is important to me.
Understood.
I don't know if any commissioners have any comments or questions. Linda?
Can you put the map back up again? As Ashley, I'm familiar with this property. I'm familiar with most of the stairs along that whole bluff. A lot of them do have an intermediary bench area halfway down the bluff. How long is this set of stairs?
Through you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, yeah.
The staircase itself would be about 14 feet long and the walkway is about 22 feet long. And the bench would only be about probably the same 14 feet or so. It wouldn't go the whole way. Because where the bank starts to take an angle, you can see where I have on there the small rectangle to show it. I didn't want to go the whole way. There's a point. I went out there and surveyed you might not be able to see it to scale, but it's going to take have a slight angle cant, if you will, in that walkway so that where the staircase, it would, make the most sense to build it and the least amount of disturbance. So the bench would only go about 12 feet or so. Just a single, couple of like open plank type of a seat type of a bench.
But the bench is how long in length? The bench itself.
Through you, Madam Chair, it's about 12 feet long.
I agree with Ashley that I think that's excessive. The benches that I'm familiar with, like halfway down the stairs, they're small. They're maybe, 6 foot by 6 foot, just a small little bench, sort of built into the stair length. A 12-foot long bench I think that's excessive, in my opinion. So I don't know if you want to come up with a different scheme to get a bench somewhere in there.
Yeah, and thank you, Linda, for your concerns, because, especially pulling up the picture the second time, I think of our public using the beach. They can't even get around that structure, and then you have the property owner on this giant bench sitting above them. And I just don't know, again, that's kind of what we want in the resource area.
I haven't seen anything like that, put it that way, on any of those stairways on that north side. So that's why it's a little atypical to me on top of it.
Thank you, Linda. Mark, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Ashley. There's an existing stairway now on the west side. Am I correct?
If I through you, Madam Chair, there's an existing staircase that goes straight down. There's not another staircase on the property.
Well, I'm saying there already is one on the
It goes straight
where that big end scouring is going on. There's already a staircase there, isn't there?
No, that little the little rectangle shape that you see on the plan is a remnant of a timber groin on the west side. There's no staircase on the east side. Oh, on that west side, those are timber groins that jut out of the stone groins. If that's what Will.
I'm looking at a platform art with something. I'm looking at Google Earth and it shows a platform with looks like might be a staircase going down.
Yeah, north to south.
Yeah, that's what's shown on the plan.
On the west,
on the east side of this property. Oh, that would be on the next property over, perhaps. But this property only has one set of stairs.
And
I got it.
Okay.
The next property over is the one that had the fire recently.
Yeah.
And this is two properties together, Mark. Is that maybe why it's confusing on Google Earth?
Oh, that could be. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, 17, 13, and 17.
So there'll be two staircases going down, or are you gonna
Right,
remove
but they
one or
would come
keep?
off of the existing platform. So we would just keep the one that runs to the north. And again, they're seasonal, that one's seasonal as well. And then we would have one that runs to the east.
So you need two.
Well, one would be to, keep what we have, and one would be, which is the bottom of that is underwater. On a lot of tides. But sometimes it's not.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think probably one access is more appropriate.
That's where I was going, actually. I don't think we need two, particularly down into an area where the public can't go, but on the beach, any kind of high tide, and that one, the seasonal, well, the one that's going straight out into the sound, I think is, it looks like it already exists, but we don't need two for sure. And no bench.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Awesome. Any other commissioners' comments or questions? If not, we'll open it up for public comment. I do not see any public comment on YouTube or on Zoom right now. Art, what would you like to do with some of the concerns?
Now, if we could continue to the 5th, please, Madam Chair, I'll have a look at this and see maybe what we can come up with. I think we will maybe come back with a reduced size bench. I heard you say no bench, and maybe we could see how that goes. And I know that it was a really important element. The client actually started off with wanting a bench that had enclosed storage underneath it, and I really felt like that's why we went to the. I really didn't think that I thought that a cantilever design might be acceptable, but maybe if we at least get it down to just having a small place to rest, to sit down there, limited, then, and we want to show that to the commission. We'll see what we can come up with.
All right. Well, thank you, Art. So this will continue until January 5th.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Will, I had a question on our original, I should have asked this earlier. Our original agenda, we had 3 Baltimore Ave, and the new agenda, it was not listed. Is it supposed to be on tonight?
That is for next week's meeting. I'm not sure how that snuck into that first submission.
Okay, I just wanted to double check that we weren't missing something. Perfect. Yay, we're done with notices, guys. So that moves us on to amended orders of conditions. We have the Linda Loring Nature Foundation at 90, 100, 124, 130, and 136 Eel Point Road, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is related to an elevated walkway that the commission previously approved, and again at the Nature Foundation, and to cross I believe probably an old mosquito ditch, and it became evident once we cleared the approved path where it was going to go, that there's some areas where there's natural overland flow that heads down. I thought this photo might help explain the situation. And our preference would be to not, and believe it would be less intrusive and more protective of the interest to the commission, not to try to fill that area in order to make that approach to the approved walkway length, but instead to extend the walkway and leave the natural grade the way that it exists, and sort of traverse across the existing ground. So what we were proposing would be a longer elevated walkway that would essentially start and stop where you see the grade changes happen on both sides, and then we're able to leave the natural grade alone. Any surface water that naturally drained to that ditch would continue to go, and everything would sort of just keep functioning the way that it currently does, which we believe would be more in keeping with protection of those interests.
Thank you, Art. So I agree. When I was reading the amendment, I wasn't quite sure what you were looking for. And then I saw the photo and I thought, okay, loud and clear. So that was very helpful. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? See if there are any questions from the public or dwindling public. Looks like not. Will, have you guys been out to the site?
Yes, last week, and the reality is the same as the photo.
Okay, so you think we have everything to issue an amended order?
Absolutely.
Okay. Art, would you like us to issue tonight?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to issue the amended order?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. And that moves us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 32 Western Avenue, represented by Rachel Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Rachel Freeman, and I'm here on behalf of the Nantucket Land Bank requesting another set of aluminum stairs at 32 Western Ave, which is just east of the area we were just discussing at 40 Western Ave. We recently came in with some property improvements and a notice of intent for 32 Western Ave, but did not realize that we needed beach stairs at that point. We did our beach stair inspections or our pathway inspections and recognized that this was also a site that had eroded quite a bit and would really benefit from having a set of stairs to access the beach on the existing path. So we are here with an amended order this evening, requesting permission to install stairs.
Thank you, Rachel. Linda, I see your hand up.
This is just a general question because I've worked with clients where we've had aluminum stairs that we're supposed to pull up, you know, in the wintertime. These stairs that we've approved tonight are going to approve this one as well for the land bank. Are they pulled up also? And where do they go when they get pulled up? Because just the act of pulling them up can be pretty intense on the land underneath it.
Yeah.
Right. We have multiple people in our field crew that, you know, are involved in that process because they can be heavy. And it depends on the site as to where they go. They can get stored at our shop, or they can get stored in like an adjacent parking area. It just really depends on the property.
Through you, Madam Chair, how damaging is it to pull them up over something that's not stable in the first place?
It isn't that damaging to pull them up because they're not, what's interesting is what actually is the most impactful is probably the platform on the top. And the stairs themselves aren't actually leaning against the bank. And so generally there's not, with enough people, you don't usually have any sort of impact on the bank. It's more installing the platform on the top that would actually, that I would say that's probably the most impactful.
Now, the two that we've already approved in this one, is part of our decision going to be that these have to be removed, or these three are going to be permanently in place? Is that where we are so far tonight?
No, Rachel stated that they will be removed in the.
All of them. Okay. Okay.
These banks are, one of the reasons we're doing the aluminum stairs on these banks is they're too active. There's so much erosion and they're changing so rapidly that they have to be reset every year and removed to allow for that sediment to move, you know, throughout the winter. So.
Thank you. I've always wondered about all this. Thank you.
Well, I know, Rachel, this site in particular, like it's at kind of a low spot in the dune and there's a higher dune field behind it. I'm worried the erosion's going to blow right through that this winter. It's been wild down there.
It has, and it definitely could. You know, every one of these is different every time we go look. So.
Well, I appreciate where I leave my bike. We'll still have a beach access. So thank you. If there aren't any other questions or comments from commissioners or from any members of the public that might be still on, Will, do we have everything we'd need to issue the amended order?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Mark, are you making that motion? All right, so Mark's making the motion to issue. Is there a second? Seconded by Joe. By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, I. Mazzarelli. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to 41 Hulbert LLC at 41 Hulbert Avenue, represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. On behalf of the property owner, 41 Hulbert LLC, this is an amended order of conditions request for 41 Hulbert Avenue. This is formerly the Cross property. It's an existing piece of property that contains a primary and a secondary dwelling. We came before the commission and received an order of conditions some months back to take the secondary dwelling and elevate it and bring it into compliance with the current building code and flood standards. That structure itself, we raised the existing first floor from elevation 6.8 to approximately elevation 10, which is the minimum requirement for this particular zone. The amended order before you tonight is to now elevate in a similar fashion the primary dwelling on the property. Existing dwelling is first floor is elevation 7.2. We'd be raising it to elevation 10.2, again in compliance with the 9th edition of the building code. This building would be put on a standard foundation with proper engineered flood vents. The existing grade will be maintained. There'll be no change to the existing grade. And as similar to the secondary dwelling, would be tying the roof drainage system, the roof drainage to a subsurface system, or basically the gravel system we would create when we prepare the foundation system. In order to elevate the dwelling, as in any other case, we would need to add a few steps in both the northerly or harbor side access point and the southerly side or the Hulbert Avenue side. In this particular case, there would be some infill of the existing structure that would be outside. Some of it inside the 100-foot setbacks, some of it outside. There'd be a small reduction in the footprint of the building along the westerly building facade. And there would be an elimination of a set of stairs that occur on the easterly portion of the building. Along the harbor side of the property, in this particular case, our resource area is land subject to coastal storm flowage. But in this particular area, as in this whole side of Hulbert Avenue, we do have a 25-50 setback that we typically have because of the timber bulkhead. Timber bulkhead, by definition, acts as essentially a coastal bank, by definition. In this particular case, the backside of the building contains a porch area, then open deck with a stairway that accesses the backyard. There is a second floor deck on the top of the roofed portion of the northerly or harbor facing side. We would be seeking to enclose a small section of that porch area. The 50-foot current 50-foot no build bisects the existing structure, and in fact it incorporates part of the existing deck, the porch, and some of the second floor deck. So we would be looking to enclose a portion of the existing porch. Approximately 55 square feet of that would occur within the existing no build, although that's already within area that's already existing, part of the existing structure. The plan itself sets forth all of the proposed improvements in red. And that's the extent of essentially of the application. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments from commissioners? One So I know I have one. So Paul, normally I am completely understanding of expanded access steps, you know, when we're bringing structures into flood compliance. This one though, the expanded access steps on the harbor side, it seemed to me like there might be a way to put those within that first floor deck so that you don't need to extend them. Like I've seen before, steps that are kind of, again, within the deck. I just feel like there could be maybe a little bit of work done there so that they're not encroaching into the 50.
Okay, what we did in that case, Ashley, was we actually reduced the width of the steps. So if you'll notice, the size of the steps that are there now are a lot wider. So Will, if you could bring that plan back up. And if you look at that back area, you'll notice the steps.
Okay, so they went that whole length and now it's like half length.
What
I
was equate what was there, why we extended, we then reduced. So that was the intent there along that back area.
Thank you for clarifying. I think I missed some of that overlap in the step.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. Very helpful. Retract my question.
Okay.
All right, if there are no questions or comments from the commission, it does not look like we have any public comment on this one. Will, has staff been out to the site?
Yes.
Okay, and we have everything to issue an amended order?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. Paul, would you like us to issue?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a motion to issue?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. I'll give Mike the second. By roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Landowski.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us on to requests for determination of applicability. We have 16 Gardner Road LLC at 16 Gardner Road, and we have Art Gasparo on for this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm before the commission tonight with with an RDA for a proposed shed within the 100-foot buffer zone to a border and vegetated wetland. The shed would be outside of the 50-foot buffer zone and on the opposite side of an existing dirt road. And I believe there would be no adverse impact in the interests protected by the commission. But as a jurisdictional area, we'll be happy to answer any questions or concerns you might have.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. Will, what would staff recommend here?
Sorry, mute difficulties. I was out there earlier this week. I think that given the intersection of Gardner Road between where the resource area and the proposed shed is, it does not appear that there would be much of an adverse impact or additional adverse impact to the wetland.
And I apologize, I don't have those numbers in front of me. What numbers should we be issuing out for this one to allow for the work without a permit?
I also don't have that in front of me. But that can be found.
All right. That's what we have to make the motion about, and I just don't have that in front of me. Unfortunately, we haven't done RDAs in a little while, so I'm not as fresh on those numbers as I normally am.
Yeah, I may need a minute or two to find that. I don't know if it makes sense if we can continue to the next thing and then and come back. I don't know if that's a possibility or not.
I could probably help if you want, Madam Chair. I believe it would be a -3 that the work described in the request is within the buffer zone as defined in the regulations, but will not alter the area subject to protection of the act. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent. So -3, I believe, is the
is what we're working on. Thank you. I just can't have too many things up on this tiny MacBook Air and do the meeting.
I could share if you want a different determination to look at, but
Nope, that sounds accurate to me. Recognizing it's in the buffer zone and allowing the work. So would
I'll make
anybody?
that motion, Ashley.
All right. make a
-3.
Perfect. And it looks like Joe is making the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Mazzarelli, Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously.
thank you.
Thank you, Art. That moves us on to minor modifications. We have Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 19 Walwinet Road, represented by Brian Madden.
Good evening, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. We received an order of conditions for a number of site improvements for this property that contains Eat Fire Spring. If you remember, we were proposing to remove the pool, some patios, some retaining walls, fencing, storage building, and a little gazebo. And at that point in time, we had mentioned that we would be coming back to you for some updates on landscaping details. And so that's what we're here before you. This plan depicts in more detail the native revegetation areas. We have a palette of Nantucket native shrubs that we're proposing throughout the property. We've spec'd out locations for ADA compliant paths and sitting areas that are going to be reinforced grass surfaces. We provide a little bit more definition on the patio sitting area, in addition to pervious parking areas. Some of those are outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but this represents the overall improvements that are being planned for the site. I don't know if Rachel has anything else to add at this point.
No, I think that sounds great, Brian. I don't have anything right now, but if there's any questions that come up, I am happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Forgive me, I found that plan to be a little bit confusing. Where what are the blue lines in there, Brian?
Those are the dashed dotted lines.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the buffer zones to either bordering vegetated wetlands or bank to Eat Fire Spring.
Okay, Will, could you put that back up just quickly, please? Or Brian, I don't know who had it up.
And if you remember, so Eat Fire Spring, looking at the east, that right-hand corner where you see it's labeled Eat Fire Spring, and then it goes into it goes into a culvert head wall system further to the west. It's flowing towards Pulpus Harbor. It goes through a series of culverts and then some open aired sections. So the where in the central portion where it says existing willow, if you can see that, immediately north of that, that's where there's an open section for Eat Fire Spring, and there's that stone monument that's in that location. And then it gets piped to the northwest, and then that blue area, the solid blue area, is where it pops back out a little bit to the left. That area right there. And then there's another culvert that flows under the NISDA driveway to the wetland on that property. And all all the surrounding areas are currently lawn, or there's privet along areas that we got permission to remove. and replace with all the native vegetation.
Okay, I just wasn't seeing this like clearly because it's not labeled like 50, 25. It's just a little confusing for me, but thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
Thank you. I had a question regarding the pollinator garden, which is actually quite small, but just about the species that might be used there. Because I know like in my garden, I have some great pollinator plants, but they are aggressive seeders and have like managed to escape. So I want to make sure we don't have non-native species that might try and spread out of there.
Yeah, that would be the intent. And Rachel, I don't know if you have any specific in mind at this point, or that's going to be selected a little bit further down the road.
We don't have specific plant listings at this point. I am happy to come back with a list for your review if that's something you'd be interested in. And I definitely agree that there's some species in pollinator gardens that can be quite aggressive, and we would be looking to avoid those. And we'd be looking to stick to native species as well.
Okay, perfect. That, we can, that makes me more confident. Thank you. If there aren't any other questions or comments, Will, do we have everything we would need to issue the minor mod?
Yes.
I'm assuming you'd like us to issue the minor mod tonight.
Please.
Is there a motion to issue?
So move, Madam Chair.
Joe got you with his hand, so I'm going to give it to Joe, and I'll give you the second, Linda. So by roll vote, Beal.
Actually, did you want that list of pollinators?
Rachel said in the record that it'll be hopefully native species, so I think I'm confident there.
I'm happy with you mentioning that as well.
That would be great if when you get a list, if you bring it in, but again, I think
I'd like to see it too. Yeah, I vote aye.
Perfect. Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
So that moves us on to Johnson at 34 Easton Street, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you tonight, for I believe is a positive modification, and that is to increase the height of the pier that was approved to be rebuilt. There's a little bit of ambiguity, I think, in the Chapter 91 license, and that what was constructed is a little bit lower than what the license allowed. This was some years ago. And we're under a current order of conditions to replace that pier essentially in kind, and believe that, with good planning for the future and coastal resiliency, sea level rise, that sort of thing, that it would be a smart decision to raise that pier up about a foot to where it was actually licensed to be constructed. I believe that's ultimately positive to all the interests protected by the commission, less shading, and no any adverse effect as a result of that. I'd be happy to address questions that you might have.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Art, just a question is, so how do they raise it? Do they just lift the boards or the structure of the underlying joists?
Madam Chair, it's being rebuilt completely, so no new piles are going in. So it's essentially a replacement, is what the current order allows. So in the reframing of it, we'll just, set a benchmark down there for the contractor, and that will be the elevation. They'll set the boards, and then the cross members for the joists to rest on those piles.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry.
No problem. That's a good question. Any other questions or comments? Will, have you guys been out to the site to look at it?
Yes, indeed. And we do have everything we would need to close.
Okay, perfect. Is there a motion to issue the minor mod?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. And that moves us on to EPR RGH LLC at 119 Eel Point Road, represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the property owner and applicant, EPR RGH LLC. This is a minor modification request and more beach stairs to talk about. This is a section, a stairway that was approved by the commission. There is an existing order of conditions for the property. You'll see in the dark or black on your plan, this is a set of beach stairs that was approved with a wooden boardwalk, a section of aluminum stairs to a platform, and then another section of aluminum stairs, which would be the seasonally removable section of beach stairs. The issue became that the initial section of stairs from the top of the bank to the platform, which held the removable stairs, is basically would take up two sections or two 20-foot sections of aluminum stairs, and it was quite a significant run. So the decision was made to leave in place the platform with the removable seasonal stairs, but construct a conventional standard wooden access way, which would mean a standard level top area, a drop to another level area, the stairs down to the platform. So it would eliminate that straight run of over 40 something feet in a straight line down to the lower platform. So it's the same location on the site. Essentially, it's still a set of stairs. We are just seeking approval to use a set of conventional wooden beach stairs in the interior section prior to getting to the lower section of the coastal beach. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Property is 119 Eel Point Road. This property has been redeveloped. Both this and 119R have been before you a number of times with orders, amendments, and minor mods. This is the last phase of this project. Everything else has been constructed. We are preparing as-built as we speak, but the stairway component has not been installed out here yet. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And Marco, you might remember this one because this was one when we talked about that length of run of the aluminum beach stairs, whether there was any building code requirement. When they are the wooden beach stairs, you do have the requirement for the in the mid platform, whereas the aluminum stairs, there was no requirement for that interior platform. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Now you have me curious if that's like some weird loophole that's in there with the stairs and needing a platform. But are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Joe?
The comment when I first saw it, I looked at the wooden stairs and then the aluminum stairs, and I wondered, why in the world is it that way? Why isn't it all aluminum? But I think that was explained.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Will, have you guys been out to the site, and do we have everything we'd need to issue a minor mod?
Yes, and yes.
All right. So if there are no other questions or comments, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the minor mod? Motion made by Mark, seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And that moves us on to certificates of compliance. We have Acciser at 14 Moores End Lane. I know we have Art Gasparo on, but I don't know if he wants to go through it or will.
I'm happy to just quickly address, I believe the project is completed in substantial compliance. And I'm happy to defer to staff or address any questions that may come up.
Thank you, Art. Will, have you guys been out to the site, and do you agree that we're in compliance and could issue the cert?
I'm having mute issues tonight. I'm sorry. Yes and yes to both.
Okay, perfect. Is there a motion, or are there any ongoing conditions I should ask here that you'd recommend?
Nothing new to add to this.
Okay. Would somebody then like to make a motion to issue the certificate of compliance? Motion
So
made by
moved. Second.
Mike. So I'll give the motion to Mike. I'll give you the second, Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Lindowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art. And that moves us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 80 Myacomet Avenue. I know we have Rachel Freeman on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have been working on the project at 80 Myacomet Ave for a number of years now. Primarily, it originally was removal of large quantities of debris on the site, and then we've been working extensively to maintain or eliminate, reduce, I suppose is the right word to use, invasive species, particularly Japanese knotweed. And we continue to do so. And we're hoping to be able to condition that we are actually able to continue to do invasive species work on this property, because this will be an ongoing quest for some time now. And but we feel like we are in compliance with what we need to have done, and feel like it's a good time to try and close this out.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Will, have you guys been out to the site, and what would you recommend for ongoing conditions as far as invasive species management and like monitoring?
I think it would definitely be wise to include ongoing invasive species management with the knotweed and whatnot. But I did go out there last week. Everything looks great. We have everything we need to close.
So we need the specific condition numbers from their permit that speak to the invasive species management and monitoring.
And that's not included on the COC, correct?
So usually Jeff kind of goes through their order of conditions and picks out the conditions that speak to, like in this case, it would be invasive species management and monitoring. And then we would have like condition number 20 ongoing because it speaks to those items.
Right. Let me just pull up their original order. I'm right there. The folder in our O drive containing that DEP range is empty. So I'm not sure if I'm experiencing technical difficulties right now on that, but I actually can't bring up the order.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get to it.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to bring it up on my screen.
I'm also looking in another place.
This is just a night for technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's not part of our packet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I do have it. Got it. So the condition 24 is that the applicant shall submit a monitoring protocol to the commission prior to the start of work. Let me screen share.
Yeah, so yeah, here we go. Okay. Yeah, so I guess we could do maybe an ongoing condition number 23 with the invasive species, so that would allow them to continue treatment.
Yep.
Just
Maybe
another
we-
sentence, just one more sentence in that paragraph, that section.
Yep.
And then I think we would want the site shall be monitored.
It's kind of thinking all of,
With just ongoing monitoring, just ongoing monitoring of the invasive species.
yep.
Just keep it simple.
But we can't add a condition.
No.
So we have to have one of the ones that's currently there move.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, go ahead and put it in that 23 and just add one more sentence.
Yeah, but we can't add sentences to it. Because
No
they're
sentences. The period does us in.
because they're ongoing conditions, so it has to be the way we wrote it. So probably we have the
I think 21 through 20.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, 20 through 24, I guess.
yeah.
And then
So
26, which has the yearly monitoring to see what's actually going on there.
right.
Yeah.
But they submitted their monitoring protocol already, so we wouldn't want 24 to be ongoing. Because that would have been submitted for them to just get off the ground.
Right.
So we
20 through 23 and 26.
that's what I think, yes. Do
Yeah.
any other commissioners want to weigh in on that?
Works.
Okay, so we'd have ongoing, any excavated material or plant material removed from the site is to be disposed of through the digester at a properly licensed waste storage facility. That's 20. 21, all cutting and removal of invasive species in the resource area is to be done by hand. 22, all herbicide application is to be hand painted onto individual stems. 23, all Japanese knotweed and Phragmites stems are to be treated with no greater than 25% glyphosate water-based solution, rodeo or equal. And then we would have ongoing number 26. This site shall be monitored and reports filed annually for a minimum of 3 years or until the certificate of compliance is issued. So maybe we can't use that one.
Because or until COC.
Yeah, but I would think we would want monitoring here. So I don't know where to go with that.
I want to put this over to the next meeting.
Rachel, would you mind if we left it over to the next meeting, just so we make sure we give you the ability to continue treatment?
Yeah, it does not bother me at all.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
So Will, when you stop screen sharing, and I know there's a lot of moving pieces right now, then I'll be able to see my agenda. All right, so 80 Maya Comet Ave, then we'll continue until January 5th. And we'll have the ongoing conditions ready for you. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
And then it looks like we have D Martino at 2 Gully Road, formerly 1 Ocean Avenue. And this is just a reissue, so we need to make a motion to reissue.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to orders of conditions, and Will emailed these out to us earlier today.
Yeah, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Kaiser Realty at 43, Purcell, 32 Dukes, trustees of Eel Point,
Yeah,
30 Easton, and
we closed, I thought, the Tom Nevers Land Bank too.
Yeah, there
might
should be
have-
7.
Yep.
Yeah, so we can go through, we're gonna start, because we didn't close 55 Easton or 36B Lily. We're gonna start on page 4 of what Will sent out, which is Kaiser Realty Trust at 43 Millbrook Road.
Yep.
Can everybody pull that up on their own, or would they rather Will screen share?
I have my own. There we go.
We'll do it all.
Okay.
Do it all.
All right, so Will, do you want to just kind of go through what you've written up there for us?
Sure, yep. So for 43 Millbrook, we have 18, 19, and then condition 20, quantity and specific type of herbicide used will be reported in writing to the commission on an annual basis. Any herbicide should be applied by a licensed applicator. Condition 21, should the project area show less than 50% regrowth within the first 2 years and 6 months of the permit, the applicant shall file a new notice or amendment for supplementing the area with native plantings or seedings. And 22, all reports are required annually until a COC is issued.
So you all have done a lot more of these than I have. Just on the herbicide question, it says the quantity and specific type of herbicide used will be reported in writing. Do we specify the water-based solution of glyphosate? I think I saw that in the land bank.
Yeah, we do sometimes specify and the treatment method, because this would essentially allow for like a broadcast spray.
Right.
In a lot of these situations, we'd want a cut and drip. Maybe in this case, we have a condition that the applicant come back to us with their proposal for the herbicide treatment, because they didn't really propose a clear treatment, and I think that might cover our bases there and allow us to approve the methodology that they determine they need to use. Is that something that the commissioners would like?
I think it would be sensible.
Yeah.
So just to
Yeah, that
be clear,
makes sense.
we want a condition to submit an herbicide plan to the commission before
Yeah,
any.
I think so.
Yeah.
Just because it's not clear who's going to be performing this, and they didn't specify how they're going to do the treatment.
Mhm.
So maybe an invasive species management plan is to be,
Mhm.
submitted to the commission for approval before the start of work.
Absolutely.
And then did we, for condition number 21, the 2 years and 6 months, is that like an arbitrary time frame?
I'm actually not sure where that came from. That may have been from a copy and paste, but I'm assuming it's to give 6 months before the expiration permit.
Yeah.
I just think in a situation like this, we should maybe have a more general, maybe survivability and monitoring conditions that potentially could travel if need be, if this gets closed out. Because it's possible with a seeding situation, 2 years and 6 months, we probably won't have great establishment.
Uh-huh.
But that allows them to file a new notice. So I don't know how other commissioners feel about that one. Do we also need, will a condition, any fill needed? I'm assuming they're gonna remove this invasive species, that it goes through the digester at the dump. Am I like just reading past that one?
No, that also needs to be added, and Seth's not here to see it, but condition 19 needs to be updated.
Okay. Joe?
Yes, in number 19, I looked at the ones that Will sent out, and it's inconsistent in terms of, for example, 19 that we're looking at says invasive species shall be removed. If you look at some others in that packet, it says removed and
Disposed of offsite properly.
destroyed, or some other language that we
That's what
have.
it's supposed to say.
Okay, well, some have it and some don't in that packet that was sent out.
Yeah, so that's why we're going through this and we're
That'll be fixed.
crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So thank you for catching that, Joe,
Welcome.
because my eyes are getting tired now. All right, any other amendments here? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And that should move us on to Purcell at 32 Dukes Road.
That was pretty simple.
Yep, pretty simple. This has 18 and 19, and the condition 19 needs to be updated as well. This is a function of copy and paste. I have a new master list that has the correct conditions, but there's some holdovers happening. That'll go away, I swear.
All right, does anybody have any questions, comments, amendments? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue, I guess, as amended, because we're updating 19?
Yep, so moved, Madam Chair.
Linda made the motion. I'll give Joe the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us to, it's like trustees of Eel Point Road, I believe, at 77 Hummock Pond Road.
Did we close that one?
Yes.
Yes, and Paul said he'd come back in with like maybe an amendment,
Amended.
excuse me, when they figure out exactly where those buildings are going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
He was going to tighten it up later on.
So I think we need a condition here about native revegetation after
Yes.
that debris removal. And I guess just I mean, maybe they should submit a report after the debris removal and then,
Is there any merit in asking for a landscape plan? I mean, the area is, it's a general disaster right now.
right, so maybe they come in with, again, I'm confident this is gonna come in with an amendment anyway, but after they do their initial cleanup, maybe come back with a revegetation plan.
I like that. Yeah, but that's a better word for it. Thank you.
So do we want to condition it to show a revegetation plan on the?
I think we need something to identify that we need to address what's coming back, or maybe they just come in with a monitoring report assessing the health of the native vegetation and any need for, replanting.
And would that be just to have all the details, would an annual report be?
Well, in this
something we'd want?
case, it wouldn't necessarily need to be done. Like the initial one wouldn't need to be
an
done
initial,
because it's just after they do that cleanup. So maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. It's been a long week and a long meeting. I don't know if any other commissioners have a better idea how to word that. Language, ELA isn't my strong suit. I'm a science and math person.
I think you're fine with the revegetation plan, and Will's going to get a chance to see the site, and if something jumps out that it was done kind of rough, we can deal with it then.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be condition number 20.
Yes.
Any other amendments, questions, comments? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended? So Mike.
Moved.
So
Second.
Mike, all right, so I'll give Mike the motion and Linda the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And that should move us on to Nantucket Islands Land Bank. Tom Nevers.
So this has excuse me, conditions 18 and 19. I wasn't sure if we want to condition these that they are removed before storms or before the winter or anything like that. I know that was talked about.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Do we put that in the decision?
Yeah,
Right.
I think we should have that, these stairs, excuse me, will be, removed seasonally and before storms and stored, outside of the resource area.
I think storms are a little vague. I'd say named storms.
Named storms
Or,
Yeah.
over a,
I think the land bank is responsible because we've had some storms like this fall that like the 40 Western Ave and 32 Western Ave, those stairs
Yeah.
were just on and they were not named storms. So,
right.
and they were kind of like early fallish even. It's not on the radar as much. So,
I think they're pretty good stewards of that kind of thing.
yeah. So maybe we say, I don't know, in times of inclement weather when they're threatened, I'm not sure how to word that effectively.
I think you got to have faith in the landowner, and I do with the land bank. I'm thinking more of general terms.
Yeah, they've got a lot of
About it.
stairs to remove all of a sudden pre-storm.
Yeah.
There is I remember a previous decision before I even came on, because we were dealing with it at the ZBA part of it, where there was a term for the type of storm where they had to be removed. It wasn't just storm. There was some more specific.
We've used like sustained winds and sustained tidal cycle. I just don't know that actually hits at some of the events.
Yeah.
That would get these stairs. So maybe we just say stairs removed seasonally and as described in the application, and that allows them to remove them as Rachel described ahead of storms.
As needed.
Yeah, per their like responsible management,
Yep.
Is there a way that we can put anything in about signage to get to the stairs? I'm just concerned with people trouncing all over the dunes, like in those big areas.
Yeah, so this one is for the Tom Nevers one.
Yeah, there wasn't a signage thing there. It was down on Western Avenue.
Yeah, okay, 18A. Well,
But
get
no,
to
I
that one, yeah.
agree, directing people is helpful. All right, guys, so Will, are you adding a condition 20 then about the seasonal removal?
Yes.
Any other amendments to this one? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mizzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to JFM Cacique at 36 Easton Street.
Was the garage, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So this was that garage, 18 and 19, with it written as it is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I don't.
Not
Sorry,
a
I'm
lot
gonna-
happening here.
Yeah,
No.
unfortunately, I feel like you're referring to my brain right now, Linda, because of the like.
I'm
you know,
all in with you. I'm just
know
waiting
I
to
have
move my
things-
Christmas tree in from the laundry room where it's been for a week into the living room.
So I mean, this garage seemed pretty straightforward in the way the application was written. So I don't know that we need any special conditions. So if there aren't any questions, comments, amendments, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as drafted?
Motion to
Move,
issue
Madam
is
Chair.
drafted.
Second.
All right, motion given to Mike, seconded by Linda, by roll vote Beal.
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously, and that brings us to Nantucket Islands Land Bank at 40 Western Ave.
The stairs thing again.
Another set of beach stairs. So
And
we'll
the
add-
signs, and the signs.
Yeah, so this was the one with the divergent paths.
And I think the sign, it can even just be a seasonal sign to direct, where the stairs are that season.
Yeah. As needed, depending on the location.
Yeah. And they already, well, we'll see with the condition of the beach. They normally had to put like plover signage out there. There might not be beach for that anymore, but I think it could be, low profile, similar to some of those. Any other amendments on this one besides the signage and the seasonal removal of the stairs? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended?
So move, Madam Chair.
So I'm gonna give it to Joe. I think he beat you with his hand, and I'll give you the second, Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Harrisman, I, Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to 37 Sankaty Road. Sankaty Head Road, excuse me.
No, that was easy. They're coming back and they're coming back away from the bluff.
Yep. And the added conditions are basically the pool conditions.
Okay.
What about the revegetation of the area where they were?
That should be added in.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of work on that site.
Yes.
yeah, they're gonna disturb a lot of it moving forward.
So maybe a monitoring report on this one demonstrating revegetation,
Yeah,
because some of that's like within the 25, if I'm remembering correctly.
Right. I can bring that plan up again if you want to see it.
I don't
But it-
not particularly.
I don't
it
think we
was.
need the plan, but
What about a revegetation plan? So we can see what, is they're gonna disturb a lot of area?
so applicant shall provide a revegetation plan once kind of structures have been moved, or when they figure one out. I don't, again.
Yeah, once they've been moved to revegetate and monitoring agreement for the area where they've been moved from, because they're gonna have to fill in the foundations. They were on full foundations.
Yeah, and they said they were gonna use material from the site, so hopefully they can shuffle that around.
They said it'll give us the opportunity to, weigh in where we want some beach grass and stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that's good because we'd want them to be native species, et cetera.
Right, right.
And said that they were gonna use them.
Yeah.
All right, so that condition will be added. Applicant shall provide a revegetation plan monitoring once structures are moved.
All right, any
They're
other?
not gonna want a sand pit up there anyway.
That would not do well for the health of that bluff that they're atop of.
Definitely
Yeah.
not.
Any other questions, comments, or amendments? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended?
So moved, Madam Chair.
And is there a second? Seconded by Mike. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
I,
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. We are done with orders. I feel like I'm losing my voice. There you go. We have no extensions of orders, so this moves us on to other business. Approval of minutes from December 1st and December 15th. Does anybody have any concerns? I guess we'll go through December 1st first. And if there's no comments or amendments about the minutes, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as drafted? Motion made
So
by.
moved. Second.
Great. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
I,
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. And then we have December 15th minutes. If there are no kind of questions, comments, amendments about those, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as drafted? Motion made by
So
Mark.
moved. Second.
By roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Mazzarelli,
I,
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously, and thank you, Terry, for always keeping just such fabulous minutes for us. I know you were threatening retirement at one point. That was going to be coming soon, and I hope it's not.
January 31st.
Oh,
No, not leaving.
well, I'm very excited for you, but very sad for us. So we always thank you and appreciate you.
Sad for all the board. She takes minutes for everybody else.
Yeah. But I don't care if they lose their minutes taker. I just care about us selfishly. All right. So that moves us to discussion of regulatory update. I don't think we have much to discuss, but I want to make sure that in all the special meeting scheduling for like other projects we have going on, that we do not lose the focus on getting these regulations updated. So maybe we can put it on the January 5th meeting to have like a date set for that public discussion. And I don't know, Will, if our draft has been sent to council yet for review, but I just want to make sure we are like making progress there.
Yeah, I'll check in with Jeff in the morning about that.
And
I
maybe
know Jeff,
maybe I'll even stop in because I don't have school tomorrow. So
Yeah.
I know Jeff had some
Hello.
comments at
going
the
on?
select board meeting.
regarding our regulatory update.
Yeah, he presented a condensed version, I believe, and spoke briefly at the meeting, but
Yeah, he did. I was on for that one, but didn't comment. No, he did a great job of summarizing kind of what's going on in the procedure. Yeah.
so that's on YouTube Select Board if anybody really wants to excite their Christmas holiday and go back and watch that.
Not really.
All right, so that moves us on to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. Do we have anything, Will?
I'm gonna keep it short, but I do have one. And I tried to raise my virtual hand earlier because I wasn't sure if it may have been pertinent beforehand, but that 2 Gully Road property, they own a parcel across the street on the beach side, and there's a stand of a good amount of Japanese black pine and pitch pine and probably some other things. I wasn't trespassing, but that has all been clear cut like in the past week or two, and
No.
very much like on the coastal bank.
Do they
I
think
have
that we don't go to Sconset in the
pictures.
winter time? What do they think? We're asleep at the wheel here?
This was today. I found this, just happened to kind of take the long way to where I was going. But I don't know if anybody wants me to share the screen. I can show some pictures of that.
Yeah, why don't you show us some images? The pitch pine really is upsetting, especially with northern long-eared bats getting listed. That's their habitat.
Right. And I
And
mean,
also
like, you know,
all
as I
the
said, this
foliage
was
is
today
bolted.
from
No.
afar.
Oh my God.
Are those juniper in there too, maybe?
There could be.
All right.
Do they
So
understand
and
that
you-
this stuff holds it holds the integrity of the land that it's
Right.
actually sitting on?
And so this is the little bit that's left. I don't know if there's
Oh,
a
boy.
small parcel that
might be off their property.
I think the land bank owns it. But this is all just laying down. This is all,
No.
everything that was there is just left on site laying down.
All
I
right.
know that stand of trees.
Yeah. So, Will, do you need us then to make a motion to issue the enforcement?
Yes.
I got both hands up for that one.
All right. So,
Madam
Linda,
Chair,
yes, Arthur?
could I be heard on this?
Sure.
Okay. Here's the situation on this. I represent the Sconset Trust. The Sconset Trust bought this property this morning. We closed on it at 11 o'clock this morning. And an hour later, I got a call from Jeff Blackwell to the effect that this issue had come up. We had entered into an agreement to buy the property, obviously for conservation and open space purposes. And we noted that there was an outstanding order of conditions, which, as it turns out, had been closed out with a certificate of compliance many years ago, but that had never been recorded, and the original is no longer extant, so we had to have it reissued. And the seller undertook to do that after the closing, since the meeting was not until tonight. And then, as I say, an hour after the closing, we heard that there was an issue about all of this, which we had absolutely no knowledge of. We were not involved in this cutting at all. And we have obviously brought it to the attention of the seller and the seller's lawyer. And they have assured us that they thought that whatever they were doing was right. I have no idea on what basis they thought that what they were doing was right, but that they would deal with the issue and do anything that was necessary in connection with it.
But wait a minute, Arthur, this was done after you changed title?
This was done before the title was changed.
Okay.
This work was apparently done recently, from what Will just said. And we'd entered into an agreement to buy the property about a month and a half ago. And apparently the seller went ahead and did this unbeknownst to us before the closing.
I gotta say, that's really pathetic.
Yeah, and in any event, we found out about it. We found out about the situation after we'd already closed on it. And as I say, the seller has assured us that they will do whatever is necessary, whatever is required by the commission to remediate the situation. So the point is that Sconset Trust obviously will cooperate in any way. It's not our fault, obviously, also. We've gone to the seller, as I say, and they have assured us that they will cooperate. So that's what's going on.
Do we know if the seller through you, Ashley, do we know if the seller authorized that? Or my point is, sometimes I've seen view clearing things before that people make assumptions that they want to see cleared, and I'm just wondering if we know who did it and who authorized it.
I'm assuming that the seller did it. I'm told by the seller's lawyer that the seller told her that they thought that they'd spoken with somebody who said that they could do it. I don't know any of the circumstances or facts of that. I'm told that they were proceeding in good faith and thought that they had the right to do it.
What
I
was the
don't know any
purpose
more
of
than
it?
that. Huh?
What's the purpose? What was the purpose of it?
I know we're upset about this, but for Terry and everybody's sake, can we try not to interrupt too much? And
It's just,
Will,
I'm flabbergasted.
here.
So, in any event, obviously, this was not anything that was done on behalf of the Sconset Trust. And at this stage of the game, obviously, we can't bring back the specific plants that were cut down. The question is, what does the commission want done? What will have to be done by way of filing an order of conditions, which we will be obviously happy to do, and then we will seek the cooperation of the seller of the property, who is responsible for whatever happened here in connection with remediating the situation.
Perfect. So first, Will, can you stop the screen share?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. And Arthur, I think long story short, we need to issue out a couple of enforcements probably. Unfortunately, if you are the new property owner, one goes to you just because you are the property owner. And then we try and hit at the individuals that did the work, which would have been the previous property owner. And those enforcements would then trigger a requirement to come in before us and make that plan for notices of intent or revegetation, whatever that may be at a later date. So we would actually get, again, I guess the previous owner and whoever did the work to come before us as part of this.
Right. We obviously will file notice of intent, and I don't know that there's an awful lot of discussion that needs to take place in terms of this before we file the notice, other than to work with Jeff and Will as to what you want done, and then obviously put the responsibility on the seller of the property to deal with it.
Yes. And we'll make sure that happens. So Joe, you had your hand up for a while, and then Linda, I'll go to you.
It's difficult to understand why the seller who had a deal cut on this property would turn around and spend money to cut down everything on the lot.
Because it could
Is
be
that-
their view shed. Their house is
Yeah.
probably back there and they're selling the front, they want to see the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Is very
That's
much so.
exactly the point.
Oh,
Now I got it. Now I understand.
So it's a Vista prune not on their property anymore. So and it's a big one. So this is unfortunate, and I feel for you guys at the Sconset Trust, because you got caught in the middle of something a little dirty, I feel like. Linda, again, you had your hand up, and then Mike, I'll go to you, and Will, I see your hand up too.
yeah, I think I got it now. They're keeping the house across the street,
Yes.
and they wanted to get rid of the view problem before they sold the piece. There is no question here. They knew they were doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And I do agree that in order to protect ourselves and Sconset Trust ultimately, we have to issue the enforcement orders. We have no choice.
Right. Yeah. To both, unfortunately, Arthur, and then you guys you're not on the hook for the problem. But again, that is like you're saying, you'll file the notice, and hopefully the previous property owner will be funding, et cetera. Because I'm assuming that you will continue conversations with their attorneys.
You bet.
Yeah. Mike, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that pitch pines are available now in nursery production. So we can go to pitch pines and get them and have them available to be placed back.
Thank you, Mike. That's a good tool to have for sure. Will, you've had your hand up.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is the right time, but I think that the sooner I can do this, the better. And Arthur, this question might be for you, but I'm basically just looking for permission to go onto that property.
Absolutely.
I just want to see the species that are there and count the stumps. And
Will, you'll be able to do that when we issue this enforcement too.
And
Okay.
and you will have our complete cooperation, and we look forward to any comments and suggestions that you may have with regard to how the situation should be remediated.
Wonderful. Thank you.
thank you, Arthur, for explaining this situation because it was more in depth than I expected, quite honestly.
You can't believe how shocked I was when I got the call from Jeff Blackwell this morning after he'd spoken with Jeff Carlson and made me aware of the situation.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. So
An hour after the closing.
yeah, you can't make
I'm just staggered by the stupidity that think we're not paying attention to this.
it's sad, really. And the other unfortunate part is I think that at this point, all of the individuals that have the equipment to be clear cutting an area like this know better.
Yes, of course they do.
Like this have been in the paper before. So this might be a good one for some of our newspapers to pick up as well, because it is a little slimy. But
It's not just topping trees, it's the trees are gone.
Right.
Mike, did you have your hand back up or is it up?
Yes, I'm sorry. Just one last comment for Will. If you can, Will, or you can, but note caliper sizes while you're out there too, because that will bear in our discussion later.
And also at the same time, note them, but know that the previous property owner should be on the hook for cost to do that stuff and not the town of Nantucket. But I think at this point we should probably issue 2 enforcement owners, one to the previous property owner who must have authorized that work, and one to the current property owner, because ultimately it'll be your notice that remediates. I don't know if we need to do that in 2 separate motions. We probably should. I don't know if somebody would like to make one of those motions. Mark?
I also move to issue the order against the former landowner.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, so by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And then
I'll
I think
make a
I have another
motion to
question,
order
Matt, before we do that, while we're still on this one.
yes.
Is it possible to go after somehow the person who actually did the work? I know we've done that with the using fertilizers and stuff when we catch them in the watershed, but can we do the same thing here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can issue an enforcement and ask them to come in front of the commission. Yeah, so we could issue 3 in this case.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've issued one to the previous property owner. Would somebody like to make another motion?
I think Mark was making the motion to issue to the current property owner.
Mark,
Thank you, Linda, for taking it over. I make that motion.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, so by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously, and now we just need one for the individuals that carried out the work.
That's my motion.
All right, is there seconded by Joe? So by roll vote, Beal.
Do we know who it is going to?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Just like perfect. Arisman, aye. Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. So hopefully they'll be, at, if not our next meeting, the following meeting after that, explaining what went on. And Will, as soon as you can get out there and give us a general survey, can't wait to hear about it.
Absolutely.
Arthur,
Sorry to
thank
see it.
Yeah, totally sorry to see it. But Arthur, thank you for bringing this to our attention and being a willing participant in making it right again.
You're very welcome.
Hanging out till 8:30.
What's that?
Crazy.
I said, and hanging out till 8:30.
Yeah, no kidding. And again, I would really appreciate, Will, if you would be in touch with me, and I'll take it to the proper places in terms of anything that you would suggest in terms of what course we should take on remediation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you. This is a Christmas catastrophe. That's what we'll call it. All right, guys, that moves on to reports. Crack is not here. We have CPC.
Yes, CPC, we met a couple of days ago and approved some funds to be spent to various nonprofits.
Awesome. We don't have NP and EDC here, so that's quick. On to commissioners' comments.
Madam Chair, another incredibly well-run meeting. Can you just chair all of my meetings?
If I could get paid and that could be my full-time job, I would totally do it, but
It's a big
I don't
ask.
know how you have arrived at the way you run these meetings, but I wish everybody else knew how to run a meeting like that.
if you had to stand in front of a classroom of rowdy teenagers and like figure out that piece, you can truly manage just about anything after that.
Yes, I know. I've been a coach for 40 years. I got that one.
Just my comments are Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody here, of our commissioners and traveling, and all our support staff. And I enjoyed again seeing Fig in the lower right corner snoozing through the meeting earlier. It's gone now, but
yeah, she's on the other corner of the couch. All right. If there aren't any other comments, I, would have to echo thank you to all of you commissioners. All the time we spend like each year, each week. It's a lot, and we deserve more credit than we get.
Yeah, there's a lot more stuff that I gotta chime in there. We do a lot more stuff here than just geotubes. And I don't think enough people pay attention to everything else, as you said, that we actually do accomplish over here.
No, I agree. People only hear kind of the bad noise and kind of miss the dedication of all of us. But I think that's most town communities.
I must say it was a nice article in today's Inquirer Mirror regarding the Conservation Commission. It was, both sides were fairly presented regarding the legal issues of us not having an attorney. So good for Marianne to get that in right.
Yeah, I think that was maybe Dean who wrote that one. It's good.
I get it.
Yeah. If there aren't any other commissioners' comments, we'll give it over to Will for administrator staff reports.
Short.
I don't have much to say except for thank you all, and I hope you didn't miss Jeff too much.
Nope, we got through it, but well, I will warn you, I might try and pop by tomorrow and just get at you two. I'll give you guys a heads up.
We'll be here.
All right, guys, we're at the end. Does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
All right, by roll vote, Beal.
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Mazzarelli.
Aye.
Mendowski. I could see the aye. Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Happy.
Same to you.
Stay
See you
safe in
tomorrow.
the storm if you're here.
Ice cream time.